Throughout NBA history, a prevailing misconception has persisted, suggesting that the majority of NBA players have had an easy journey. However, this notion is far from accurate. Despite the tantalizing potential for fame and fortune, the life of a professional NBA player is arduous, marked by significant sacrifices and relentless hard work, often yielding limited rewards. While it is true that some players have achieved the pinnacle of success, it is more typical for athletes to encounter hardships and descend into personal struggles. Seldom do we hear about professional athletes whose challenges lead them to make the ultimate sacrifice. One such athlete was Brian Williams, who had once been a standout NBA player. Unfortunately, his story took a tragic turn. The date was June 13th, 1997, and the Chicago Bulls had just clinched their 5th NBA championship in 7 years. Their victory is an epic series against the Utah Jazz, complete with 2 last-second game-winning shots and a remarkable performance by Michael Jordan despite battling the flu in Game 5. The team gathered amidst a throng of 24,000 jubilant fans. Michael Jordan, with a look of satisfaction on his face, stood at the center of the festivities. To his left was Scottie Pippen, and to his right stood Brian Williams, the Bulls' 6'10" forward. This championship marked a pinnacle in Williams' career, but one wouldn't discern it from his demeanor. Despite the significance of the moment, the 28-year-old appeared distant and seemed almost lethargic. However, a closer examination revealed that behind his pale green eyes lay a harrowing narrative involving love, deception, and tragically, loss. Brian Carson Williams entered the world in Fresno, California on April 6, 1969, as the second and youngest son of Patricia Phillips and Eugene Williams. Brian seemed destined for success, given their father's history as a former soul singer for the Platters, a renowned American vocal group formed in 1952. In 1970, the R&B group discovered Eugene at a nightclub, leading to the family embarking on a journey that would take them around the world with the Platters. However, from the early days of his childhood, it was evident that the family's close-knit bond was headed for a tumultuous demise. This prophecy materialized in 1970 when his parents, his father and mother, underwent a divorce, leaving the children without a paternal figure in their lives. Although their mother eventually remarried, by the time Brian reached the 7th grade, her second marriage was already crumbling. During his formative years, Brian attended Santa Monica Catholic High School in Santa Monica, California, where he excelled as a track runner and an exceptional athlete. However, there was little indication that this 15-year-old would evolve into a prominent basketball star. In fact, he didn't even attempt organized basketball until the 10th grade, when an unexpected growth spurt compelled him to explore a career in the sport. Unlike most aspiring NBA players, Brian harbored no initial passion for basketball. Despite his initial indifference, the left-handed forward displayed remarkable grace on the court. He moved like a point guard, effortlessly executing baseline jump hooks and exhibiting a smooth touch. He glided across the court, displaying his exceptional skills as an outlet passer and a trailer on fast breaks. At times, he showcased his athletic prowess, becoming an invaluable asset to his team. His abilities made him an ideal candidate for success, and he only continued to improve with each game.
Points, and this team seems like you guys are coming on real strong now towards the end of the season, aren't you?
Yes, we are. At the beginning of the year, we weren't doing so. We weren't playing together. Now we're really playing as a team. We're looking good.
After completing his time at Santa Monica, Brian embarked on his freshman year at the University of Maryland, standing a towering 6'9" tall. Here, he joined the Maryland Terrapins, earning the title of Rookie of the Year for his outstanding performance. Before long, he transferred to the University of Arizona, where he truly began to shine. In his first season in Tucson, he averaged 10.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 0.4 assists, followed by a second season, where he recorded 14 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 0.6 assists per game. These achievements highlighted Brian's undeniable talent on the basketball court. As he continued to excel, Brian Williams, at the age of 21, entered the 1991 NBA Draft, ultimately being selected as the 10th overall pick in the first round by the Orlando Magic.
10th pick in the 1991 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic selects Brian Williams from the University of Arizona.
Brian Williams, 6'9½", 240 pounds, played his high school basketball at Santa Monica, California. He's 22 years old, and his father, as you pointed out to me today, is also famous for Maryland Players.
Right, well, you know, he started out at Maryland, and he was successful early. What you must see from him is consistency. He has a very soft shot, a low power game, plays with a great deal of emotion.
After years of unwavering dedication and hard work, Brian Williams finally achieved his dream of making it to the NBA. However, unlike most players, his entry into the NBA wasn't the pinnacle of his life. It turned out to be a significant low point. Brian's sentiments were less than positive as he expressed, "I'm going to the bench. Never really a good feeling. I just go down there and work out with the team, the staff, and the management. The owners are good people, and the team I'm playing with seems focused and determined. They appear to be on an upward trajectory, and I'm glad to be a part of it." While Brian initially excelled with the Orlando Magic, his lack of passion for the game and personal troubles began to overshadow his on-court success. During the 92-93 season, he played only 21 games, and he was diagnosed with clinical depression, making him one of the first publicly recognized instances of mental health issues in the NBA. His struggle with depression had a noticeable impact on his performance. Initially, his behavior became unpredictable during practices, including passing out while guarding teammates and being involved in a car accident. He also admitted to a suicide attempt where he ingested 15 sleeping pills. His mother even suggested that there may have been a second attempt. Brian Williams attributed all of his mental health issues to his unhappiness in Orlando. Following his diagnosis and struggles, Brian was placed on the injured reserve list. However, in the 1993 season, he made a pivotal decision to leave the Orlando Magic and join the Denver Nuggets, where he played alongside NBA legend Dikembe Mutombo. During this stint, he played a career-high 80 games and averaged 8 points per game. In 1995, Brian moved to the LA Clippers, where he played 65 games and averaged an impressive 15.8 points per game. Contract disputes initially led him to considering sitting out the remainder of the season. However, the Chicago Bulls, led by head coach Phil Jackson, reached out to him. Entering the 1997 season, the Bulls were the reigning NBA champions, with the return of Michael Jordan from his brief retirement. The team, having previously won 72 games in a season, signed Brian as a free agent just 9 games before the regular season's conclusion. Michael Jordan, upon his arrival, motivated and pushed Brian Williams to get in shape, maximize his talent, and develop a genuine passion for the game. Brian ultimately embraced the challenge and seamlessly integrated into the new roster. His significant playing time off the bench during the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Atlanta Hawks proved to be a pivotal move, as he delivered an outstanding performance throughout the series. This included scoring 14 points in Game 3 and achieving a double-double with 12 points and 10 rebounds in the series-clinching Game 5. On June 13, 1997, in a highly anticipated NBA Finals matchup against the rival Utah Jazz, Brian continued to play a crucial role in the Bulls' pursuit of their 5th NBA title in 7 years. His contributions were instrumental in the franchise's successful championship run. Throughout his tenure with the Chicago Bulls, Brian displayed remarkable talent and untapped potential. To this day, many of the NBA star's family and friends assert that this period marked the only time in his life when he was experiencing genuine happiness.
Would you like to be a member of the Chicago Bulls for only a month? And earn yourself a position to play in the championships and win a world championship ring? Well, I'll tell you what, that's exactly what Brian Williams did.
This means the world to me. I can't thank you all enough for embracing me, the coaches, the players, the whole organization. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Despite his undeniable talent, Bryant's time with the Bulls was relatively short-lived. He struggled with certain deficiencies on the court, and his erratic behavior became increasingly perplexing. This was exemplified when he attempted to open the emergency exit hatch of the team's charter jet while cruising at 30,000 feet, an act that could have resulted in a catastrophe. Consequently, he was seen as a liability, both on and off the court. Brian Williams would eventually find a new home when he signed an astonishing 7-year, $50 million contract with the Detroit Pistons. This raised eyebrows considering his inconsistent performance. Nevertheless, as the starting center for the 1998 Detroit Pistons, Brian, now known as Bison Daly in honor of his Cherokee and African ancestry, averaged 16.2 points and 8.9 rebounds per game. Subsequently, after participating in just 49 games during the 1998 NBA lockout season, Bison Daly, despite being in the prime of his career and still having a substantial amount of money remaining on his contract, made a bewildering announcement: his sudden retirement. He had been the Pistons' highest paid player, with over $36 million left on his 5-year contract. Walking away from such a substantial sum of money was unfathomable. Criticism poured in from friends and family, but Bison Daly, despite 2 relatively productive years with the franchise, retired from the game. Money could not provide the stability and fulfillment that he sought. Despite his on-court accomplishments, it became evident that basketball did not bring him the happiness that he yearned for. In the end, Bison Daly's retirement marked a departure from the conventional path of professional basketball players. Unlike many whose careers are cut short due to injuries or lack of skills, he retired to pursue a different kind of spotlight, one far removed from the NBA arenas. It was apparent to many that basketball was not his true passion, but rather the luxuries that it afforded him. Following his retirement, Bison Daly began to chase his genuine desires. He spent months in Beirut, traveled through Europe, ventured through Indonesia and India, and even took up DJing at nightclubs. He met with the Dalai Lama, enjoyed jet skiing in the Mediterranean, ran with the bulls in Spain, rode camels in Cairo, admired Havana's beautiful sunsets, and explored the bazaars of Istanbul. He also pursued his love for music, mastering several instruments like the saxophone, violin, and trumpet, and also earned a pilot's license. This was the life that he had envisioned, a departure from the glitz and pressures of the NBA. Fueled by curiosity, and now financially equipped to do so, Bison Daly was on the path to realizing all of his dreams. Regrettably, the chances of his dreams ever coming to true fruition would soon meet a tragic end. In February of 2000, Bison Daly fulfilled a lifelong dream by learning how to sail. He eventually purchased a 55-foot catamaran boat for $650,000 and named it Hakuna Matata, albeit with a slight misspelling of the Swahili phrase for "no worries." Bison then set sail in the South Pacific, exploring destinations like the Solomon Islands, Fiji, Australia, and various points in between. Toward the end of 2001, Bison extended an invitation to his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, to join him on one of his adventures. They had initially crossed paths in 1997, and despite the strong affection they had for each other, Bison's NBA career had made maintaining a relationship challenging. To make up for lost time, Bison decided to embark on the adventure of a lifetime with Serena. Just 5 months later, the Hakuna Matata was poised to set sail from Tahiti with plans to spend time in Hawaii. Unfortunately, their idyllic journey would soon turn into an unthinkable and tragic disaster. While Bison Daly was finding himself and pursuing his dreams, he carried a shadow that had been with him his entire life. A shadow that had consistently asked him for money ever since his NBA success. This shadow was Kevin Williams. In stark contrast to Bison, Kevin was socially awkward, unsympathetic, and with severe asthma, which led him towards books and chess instead of sports, music, and wealth. While Bison had achieved success, Kevin had struggled, moving from one job in town to another, frequently relying on his younger brother's financial support. To the public, Kevin remained known as Bison's brother. Despite Daly's apparent joy after leaving the NBA, Kevin remained deeply attached to his hip. Although the two brothers had distinct personalities and differences, their physical resemblance was striking. Standing 6 foot 8 inches and weighing 260 pounds, with a broad jaw and short hair, Kevin appeared as a thicker, less attractive version of Bison. Like his brother, Kevin also changed his name to Miles DeBoard. He battled depression, made multiple suicide attempts, grappled with alcoholism, and took significant amounts of steroids, resulting in frequent hospital visits, with Bison often covering his medical bills. Despite their similarities, people invariably gravitated towards Bison, leaving Miles feeling underappreciated and overshadowed by his brother's success. To make matters more complicated, the siblings had never fostered a genuine relationship. Since childhood, they had often been at odds, engaging in continuous arguments and physical fights. The sibling rivalry seemed inescapable and enduring throughout the years. So, when Miles learned about Bison's upcoming trip, he decided to invite himself along in a desperate attempt to mend their strained relationship. This endeavor, however, would ultimately end in failure. On July 6, 2002, Miles unexpectedly showed up at the dock. At the time, he was unemployed, homeless, and had not had any contact with Bison for over 4 years. Bison Dele was understandably skeptical of his intentions, as Miles had had a reputation for only appearing when he needed money. The question arose, did he seek more financial support, or was there another motive behind his sudden appearance? On July 6, 2002, Bison Dele, Serena Carlin, Miles DeBoard, and Bertrand Saldana, the boat's captain, embarked on their voyage to Tahiti, unaware of the tragedy that would await them. Initially intended to last 2 weeks, the trip took an ominous turn. Over the next 2 days, 3 satellite phone calls were made from the boat. On July 8th, the satellite phones on the boat were abruptly turned off, and all communication was ceased. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, friends and family grew increasingly concerned about the lack of contact from the couple. On July 20th, the Hakuna Matata finally returned to port in Tahiti, but with a startling twist. Only one person was on board, and that person was Miles DeBoard. The other 3 passengers, including Bison Dele and Serena Carlin, were missing. This marked the beginning of a tragic and perplexing mystery. Investigators immediately suspected foul play, and for several months, Miles was under suspicion. According to him, Bison Dele appeared to be alive, but the whereabouts of the other 2 passengers remain unknown. Nothing seemed to add up, and as investigations continued, the case grew more confounding. Then, on September 5, 2002, a significant development occurred in Phoenix, Arizona. A man claiming to be Bison Dele was found in possession of his passport and checkbook. He attempted to purchase $152,000 worth of gold, a highly unusual activity considering that Bison had not written a check in over 5 years. Furthermore, Bison was supposed to be on his trip in Tahiti at the time, casting doubt on the situation. Fearing something was amiss, Bison's executive assistant contacted the Phoenix Police Department. This event raised serious questions and intensified the mystery surrounding Bison Dele's disappearance. He was last seen in Tahiti on a 55-foot catamaran. At the age of 33, the former NBA star had vanished, with an ongoing manhunt spanning from the United States to Tahiti. Intriguingly, it was discovered that Miles had been impersonating his brother. The phone number associated with the gold purchase led back to Miles. Police organized a sting operation, resulting in his arrest. After a grueling 5-hour interrogation, he confessed to forging his brother's signature on the bank documents and using Bison's passport, but he was released due to lack of concrete evidence. 2 days later, reports from Tahiti indicated that the boat had been found. Authorities located the Hakuna Matata, which had been registered under a different name, off of the coast of Sahibi. The nameplate had been removed, and there were signs of possible bullet holes. Suspicions grew that Miles might have been responsible for the deaths of the other passengers, and these concerns were substantiated when it was revealed that Miles had left a voicemail for his mother, claiming he would never harm Bison and that he could not endure prison. In response, Miles fled to Mexico, a state that did not have the death penalty. During his time in Mexico, Miles' girlfriend shared information about what had truly transpired. According to Miles, he and Bison got into a heated altercation, resulting in a physical fight. In the struggle, Serena was accidentally struck in the face and killed instantly. The boat's captain wanted to report the death to authorities, but Bison, fearing the consequences, killed the captain by striking him in the head with a wrench in self-defense. Miles claimed that he then entered the cabin, retrieving a gun, and shot Bison out of fear of his own life. In a panic, and without considering the consequences of his actions, he confessed to disposing of all 3 bodies by dumping them overboard using bodybuilding weights. While this was Miles's version of events, authorities found discrepancies in his account. Forensically, his explanation did not align with the evidence. For example, if Bison had indeed struck Serena in the head, causing her skull to hit the side of the boat, there should have been evidence of blood. Additionally, if Bison had used a wrench to strike the boat's captain, the wrench could have been presented as evidence. However, investigators found no blood on the boat, and the boat's dock and flooring remained unchanged, dispelling any notion of an effort to hide evidence. To this day, no official resolution exists. Officially, the case remains open, but there are no new leads. The only version of events the FBI got on record was that of Miles DeBoard, but authorities were never able to locate him. That was until the morning of September 15, 2002 at 11:30 a.m. Mexican police would find a body of a large man on the beach not far from the U.S. border wearing nothing but a pair of white socks. The man would immediately be taken to a nearby hospital. He had no reflexes and his pupils were non-responsive. Injuries on his body suggested that he had not been moving for quite some time. 4 days later, fingerprints confirmed that the unidentified patient was, in fact, 35-year-old Miles DeBoard. The official diagnosis revealed severe brain damage, likely caused by an insulin overdose. By the time he was discovered, Miles had fallen into a coma and required life support. On September 26, 2002, at approximately 10 a.m., he was removed from life support, and the following day, Miles DeBoard, the sole individual with first-hand knowledge of the case, was pronounced dead. To this day, there are various theories and perspectives regarding the events on the ill-fated catamaran. Some speculate that DeBoard killed his brother to be with Serena, while others envision this as an elaborate disappearing act to start a new life. FBI investigators, considering the absence of blood evidence, believe that Miles coerced his brother and the other passengers into water at gunpoint in the deep, shark-infested waters of Tahiti, hundreds of miles from any land. Regrettably, the bodies of Bison Daly and his companions were never recovered and are presumed to have been victims of a probable murder. While many questions persist about the truth of what occurred, it is evident that jealousy and resentment may have played a huge role. For those who remember, not just the events, but the circumstances leading up to them, the saga of Bison Daly and Miles DeBoard remains one of the most peculiar and mysterious tales in NBA history. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming content. In the captivating and enigmatic wilds of Idaho, a puzzling tale of a young man's sudden disappearance continues to intrigue both authorities and the public alike. Terrence Woods Jr., a talented filmmaker with an adventurous spirit, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a plethora of questions and speculations. Today, we embark on a journey deep into this chilling story, uncovering the known facts and various theories surrounding his mysterious disappearance. But beware, this tale is not for the faint-hearted. As we venture into the eerie unknown, you may find yourself questioning everything you know about reality. Join us now as we delve into the heart of this enigmatic tale, retracing the steps of Terrence Woods Jr. and attempting to piece together the puzzle of his vanishing. As we navigate the twists and turns of this haunting mystery, we will confront the limits of our understanding and grapple with the chilling possibility that some secrets are simply too strange, inexplicable, and terrifying to ever be revealed. Terrence Woods Jr., a passionate filmmaker from Maryland, was known for his dedication to the film industry and had an impressive resume working on various documentaries and television shows. However, the events that unfolded in the fall of 2018 cast a shadow over his promising career, leaving those who knew him shocked and confused. In that year, Terrence found himself employed by Raw TV, a British production company tasked with creating a documentary series for the Discovery Channel called Gold Rush. The series followed adventurous gold miners as they braved the wilderness of Idaho in search of fortune and glory. Excited by the challenge and eager to explore the great outdoors, Terrence was the perfect fit for the project. The Idaho backcountry, known for its breathtaking landscapes and untouched beauty, also harbors a darker side, with tales of supernatural occurrences, mysterious disappearances, and eerie encounters. As Terrence and the television crew ventured into this remote and haunting landscape, they were well aware of the challenges they would face. The terrain was treacherous, the weather unpredictable, and the locations they sought were often difficult to access. Yet they pressed on, determined to tell the story of the region's gold mining past. It was amidst this adventure and exploration that the inexplicable events on October 5th, 2018 unfolded, forever altering the lives of those involved and casting a dark shadow over the Idaho wilderness. On that fateful day, the crew was exploring the Penman Mine, a site known for its hazardous conditions and ghostly lore. Little did they know that the eerie atmosphere surrounding them would soon give way to a far more sinister reality. After breakfast and a final equipment check, the crew set off towards the Penman Mine, eager to capture the haunting beauty of the abandoned site on camera. As they made their way through the dense forest, Terrence appeared to be in good spirits, chatting and joking with his colleagues while navigating the challenging terrain. The camaraderie among the team members kept morale high despite the demanding work and long hours. As the day went on, they captured stunning footage of the Penman Mine's decaying structures and eerie tunnels. By late afternoon, as the sun dipped towards the horizon, casting a golden light over the Penman Mine, the crew began packing up their equipment to return to the base camp. Unexpectedly, Terrence stepped away from the group and sprinted downhill through the forest, leaving his stunned colleagues behind. Without any warning, Terrence vanished into the wilderness, leaving his fellow crew members shocked and confused. They immediately alerted the authorities and began a frantic search, but despite their efforts, Terrence seemed to have disappeared without a trace. The suddenness and inexplicability of Terrence's disappearance sent shockwaves through the crew and the nearby community. An extensive search and rescue operation involving local authorities, volunteers, and the FBI was launched, which is rare because the FBI only gets involved in missing person cases if foul play or a crime is suspected. But still, no sign of Terrence was found. During the search, peculiar details emerged. Terrence's cell phone was discovered in his backpack near the spot where he started running, and his belongings, including his car keys and wallet, were scattered along the path that he took. These strange clues only deepened the mystery, leaving many to wonder if there was more to the story than meets the eye. Complicating matters further, the Penman Mine had an area with poor cellular reception, making communication and coordination during the search extremely difficult. As time passed, the search operation was scaled back, but local authorities continued to investigate leads and the potential sightings of Terrence. Throughout this distressing ordeal, Terrence's family in Maryland struggled to come to terms with the baffling circumstances surrounding his disappearance. The family of Terrence Woods Jr., left with countless questions and no answers, desperately sought to understand what could have happened to their beloved son and brother. As the investigation continued, they enlisted the help of private investigators and reached out to the media, hoping to generate new leads to keep Terrence's story in the public eye. Despite their efforts, as time passed, the search for Terrence slowly faded from the headlines, replaced by other news stories. Yet, the mystery of his disappearance continued to haunt those who knew him and those who had followed his stories from afar. As the months turned into years, the unanswered questions only multiplied, leaving behind a web of enigma and uncertainty. Numerous theories and speculations swirled around Terrence's vanishing. Some suggested the possibility of foul play, while others wondered if he had suffered a sudden mental breakdown in the Eerie wilderness. There were also speculations of encounters with the paranormal in the ghost-ridden Penman mine. However, none of these theories could be conclusively proven. Despite the dedication of volunteers and family members, the search for Terrence yielded no concrete evidence. With each passing day, the hope of finding answers grew dimmer. As the anniversary of his disappearance approaches, the enigma still captivates the public imagination. Theories continue to evolve, but those who knew Terrence remain steadfast in their belief that he would not willingly abandon his loved ones. The haunting tale of Terrence Woods Jr. serves as a reminder that some mysteries may remain unsolved, leaving us to ponder the chilling possibilities and question the enigmatic truths hidden in the wilderness. Despite numerous theories and exhaustive investigations, no concrete evidence has ever emerged to explain the baffling disappearance of Terrence. The questions keep piling up, and with each passing day, the hope of finding answers seems to slip further away. What compelled Terrence to venture into the wilderness that day, leaving behind everything he knew? Was he the victim of a tragic accident, or caught in a sinister plot? Or did he stumble upon something deeply chilling, something that defies rational explanation? As we conclude our journey into this enigmatic tale of Terrence, we are left with a haunting reminder that some mysteries may forever remain unsolved. Like the wilds of Idaho, the human psyche is vast and unpredictable, concealing secrets that might forever elude our understanding. We can only hope that one day the truth will come to light, bringing closure to Terrence's family and friends, and finally putting rest to the haunting questions that shroud his disappearance. Until that day arrives, the story of Terrence Woods Jr. will continue to be whispered in hushed tones, serving as a chilling reminder of the thin line that separates what we know from the unknown, the ordinary from the extraordinary, and the familiar world from the enigmatic shadows that linger just beyond our grasp. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming content. In the realm of the mysterious and secluded, Keith Reinhardt, a sports writer with aspirations of becoming a novelist, yearned for a break from the fast-paced world of a Chicago newspaper. Introduced to the enigmatic town of Silver Plume, Colorado, by an old acquaintance, Keith saw it as an ideal haven to embark on a sabbatical and breathe life into the novel that had always lingered in his dreams. Taking a leave of absence from his job and persuading his wife to grant him his venture, Keith set out on a 3-month retreat in this remote town, nestled amidst the mystifying peaks of the Rocky Mountains. Anticipating a transformative journey of self-discovery, Keith was drawn into a perplexing enigma that unfolded before him. Inspired by the tale of a man named Tom Young, who had mysteriously vanished a year prior, Keith's quest to unravel the truth took an unforeseen turn. As he delved deeper into the narrative, Keith unwittingly stumbled upon a clandestine secret, one that would ultimately intertwine with his own disappearance, leaving behind a haunting puzzle that tormented the inhabitants of Silver Plume and forever haunted his loved ones. Today, we embark on a journey into the realm of 2 inexplicable disappearances, one that eventually finds resolution, and another that remains shrouded in impenetrable darkness. Now, let us delve into the disappearance of Keith Reinhardt. Silver Plume, Colorado, a place that epitomizes the essence of a small town hidden away in the heart of nature's embrace. Nestled in Clear Creek County, among the towering peaks of the Rocky Mountains, Silver Plume stands as a former mining settlement steeped in tumultuous history. Once home to over 2,000 inhabitants, it was ravaged by a cataclysmic fire and a devastating avalanche, coupled with the passing of new legislation that gradually thinned the town's population. Though a few steadfast individuals remain, by the late 1980s, Silver Plume numbered just over 100 souls. Presently, that count has crept closer to 200, yet it remains far from leaving its mark on the world. With its tranquil existence cradled within the Clear Creek Valley, life in Silver Plume exudes serenity and an unhurried pace. UncoverColorado.com aptly describes it as living in a ghost town, where only a handful of businesses adorn the main street. However, visitors are not drawn to Silver Plume for its commercial offerings. Instead, the allure lies in the boundless opportunities for hiking, fishing, skiing, and other outdoor adventures that call those who crave the challenge of the untamed mountains. Situated at an elevation exceeding 9,000 feet, Silver Plume offers a hiatus for those seeking solace from the noise of modern existence. And for Keith Reinhardt, it was precisely this isolation and tranquility that enticed him. Keith had lived a hectic life, toiling for 22 years in the newspaper industry, primarily as a sports writer for the Daily Herald in Arlington Heights, Illinois, a suburb a mere 26 miles from the bustling metropolis of Chicago. At age 49, Keith experienced what some might term as a midlife crisis, a critical juncture that prompted introspection about his accomplishments and the dreams he had left unfulfilled. Having recently married Carolyn, his wife, and a proud father to 3 children from a previous marriage, Keith sought more from life, yearning for the adventures and possibilities that seemed to have eluded him with the passage of time. One of his aspirations was to author a novel, a lifelong dream that he felt compelled to pursue before it slipped away forever. Enter Ted Parker, proprietor of KP Cafe in Silver Plume, an old friend of Keith's. Through the conversation, Keith confided in Ted about the overwhelming stress of his frenzied existence, the weight of his age, and his desire to shed a few pounds and regain his vitality. Intrigued by the prospect of Silver Plume, a place offering a break from the chaos, Ted painted an enticing picture of a slower pace, a less hurried environment, the perfect sanctuary for a novelist seeking solitude and inspiration. For Keith, the decision to embark on this journey was relatively straightforward. He would retreat to Silver Plume, devoting a few months to writing, rejuvenating his spirit, and perhaps even exploring the majestic mountains that surrounded the town. However, convincing his wife, Carolyn, proved to be a daunting task. She harbored concerns about Keith's decision to distance himself from everything, including his family, in the pursuit of his dream. Yet, she did not wish to impede his journey or hold him back from the neglected aspirations that had long haunted him. After numerous conversations, some persuasion, and Keith's assurance that his absence would be temporary, Carolyn reluctantly consented. In fact, Keith proposed that once he had settled in Silver Plume, Carolyn could join him, immersing herself in the unique experience the town had to offer. Keith secured a 3-month leave of absence from the Daily Herald, and with plans taking shape, he made preparations to venture into the heart of Silver Plume. Uncertain about lodging and financial obligations, Keith became aware, likely through Ted Parker, that an adjacent building to the KP Cafe stood vacant, awaiting a new tenant. Recognizing an opportunity, Keith leased the space, envisioning a small antique shop that would sustain him financially while providing ample time for his writing. Packing his belongings and acquiring a new computer for his creative endeavors, Keith set off on his adventure. Little did he know that the very building he had chosen would unleash an inescapable wellspring of inspiration. Arriving in Silver Plume that summer, Keith discovered that Ted's descriptions had not exaggerated the allure of this quaint town. Despite the challenges of running his struggling antique shop, which failed to attract significant business like most enterprises in Silver Plume, Keith remained undeterred. Conversely, his attempts at novel writing yielded meager results, with his gaze fixed upon a flashing cursor. In a world devoid of validation for the various theories surrounding Tom Young's fate, and with little confirmation about his intentions and travels, Keith Reinhardt persisted in his quest to write his novel and uncover the truth behind its enigmatic inspiration. However, as Keith delved deeper into his investigation, the mystery reached an unexpected resolution of sorts. On July 31st, 2 hunters stumbled upon a discerning scene in the mountains. A man's skeletal remains propped against a tree, accompanied by the skeletal remains of a dog. Promptly notifying the sheriff's department, the hunters guided them to the site, where forensic examination revealed that the remains had been there for approximately a year. Both the man and the dog displayed gunshot wounds to their skulls. Nearby, authorities discovered a backpack and a revolver. Subsequent forensic analysis confirmed the identity of the man as Tom Young and suggested that the gunshot may have been self-inflicted. The presence of the gun near the scene seemingly supported the conclusion of suicide, leading authorities to believe that Young's supposed plans to travel to Europe were merely a cover story. However, despite the official ruling, the people of Silver Plume harbored doubts. Some speculated that Tom may have encountered someone in the mountains who wrestled the gun from him and pulled the trigger. The fact that his loyal canine companion, Gus, also met a tragic end made it difficult for them to accept that Tom willingly would harm Gus rather than leave him behind. Nevertheless, law enforcement treated the case as a closed suicide, despite inconclusive ballistic tests linking the bullets to the gun found at the scene. While Keith Reinhardt initially found himself increasingly engrossed in the story, his own involvement took an abrupt and mysterious turn. Just a week after the discovery of Young's remains and the official ruling, Keith vanished, triggering one of the most perplexing mysteries and intensive search efforts ever witnessed in Colorado. Throughout the week following Young's discovery, Keith continued to inquire about him, simultaneously working on his novel. Curiously, Keith attended a party the night before his disappearance, where he spoke about West Virginia and expressed a desire to visit the state. The identity of a woman Keith conversed with at the party, known only as Greta or Gretchen, remained unknown, as did the content of their conversation. The following day, on the evening of August 7th, Keith left his antique shop, locked the door behind him, and strolled through town, informing acquaintances of his intention to hike up Mount Pendleton, a daring feat, considering the late hour and the 6-hour trek required. Most dismissed his plans as mere bravado, given his lack of supplies, appropriate clothing, and experience navigating the treacherous terrain. A sighting of Keith occurred around 4:30 p.m. as he headed toward the mountain, with his last official sighting placing him in front of the Buckley's General Store at 5:05 p.m. Here, he purchased a soft drink. Keith had informed friends that he would return around 10 o'clock p.m., a statement that defied logic unless he had no intention of attempting the mountain ascent. Concern mounted when Keith failed to open his shop the following morning, as the building's owner, Ted Parker, entered Keith's living area only to discover no sign of his presence. A newspaper lay beside Keith's computer, open to an article about Tom Young's remains. Strangely, Keith's unfinished novel remained on the computer, with its final lines deepening the mystery and heightening the concern for Keith's safety. Despite an exhaustive search involving helicopters, volunteers, search and rescue teams, tracking dogs, and law enforcement, encompassing over 125 searchers and more than 10,000 man-hours, no trace of Keith was found, not even a fragment of clothing. The search was ultimately called off, leaving behind a vast wilderness where a single man could easily vanish. Keith's sudden disappearance, compared with the unsolved mystery surrounding Tom Young, left the Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department puzzled and grieving loved ones struggling to comprehend the circumstances. With little to go on in terms of clues or possessions, Keith's family vehemently dismissed the notion of him voluntarily abandoning his wife and children to start anew. Instead, they grappled with the belief that something went awry that fateful night in the forest. Despite the extensive searches, the vast expanse of natural wonder rendered it all too easy to overlook a solitary man lost amidst the majestic landscape. His daughter Tiffany, however, held a different perspective, suggesting that writers often immerse themselves in the stories that they write to better understand them. She proposed the idea that her father may have wanted to experience the act of disappearing firsthand to entice his writing. This belief was somewhat prevalent at the time, although with more than 30 years having passed, it seems unlikely that Keith's intention was to disappear permanently. Unless, of course, something went wrong that night in the forest, rendering him unable to return. One of Keith's sons believed that foul play must have been involved in his father's disappearance. He found it highly improbable that Keith, a devoted family man, would willingly abandon his loved ones. He later climbed the Pendleton Mountain, experiencing the emotional weight of being in the same place where his father had vanished or potentially still remains. Despite exhaustive efforts, including raising awareness, distributing flyers, appearing on national television shows, and consulting psychics, Keith's family was unable to uncover any new information or clues about his fate. Eventually, a plaque bearing a poem written by Keith was placed on the mountain as a marker and a memorial for the man who never returned to the town that inspired him. For the people of Silver Plume, Keith Reinhardt's disappearance became an enduring enigma. The coincidence of both Keith and Tom Young leasing the same building and meeting their respective fates in the surrounding mountains was too striking to dismiss. Some individuals in the town refused to accept the official ruling on Tom Young's death, let alone comprehend Keith's mysterious vanishing. The unidentified woman Keith was seen talking to at the party added another layer of intrigue. The nature of their conversation, if it held any secrets at all, remains unknown. The story possessed all the elements of mystery and intrigue that could captivate any novelist seeking to craft a compelling tale. However, in this case, the novel would forever remain unfinished, perpetuating the haunting mystery of what happened to Keith Reinhardt. Over the years, various theories have emerged, ranging from the possibility that Keith encountered an accident, succumbed to exposure, or fell victim to wildlife predators in the vast wilderness of Colorado. Others speculate that Keith orchestrated his own disappearance, seeking a fresh start away from the busyness and stress of his old regular life. Some even suggest that Keith and Tom Young stumbled upon something or someone in the mountain that posed a threat, leading to their respective fates. Presently, Keith would be turning 82 years old, but his whereabouts remains unknown. Desperate hopes linger within his family, yearning for answers regarding his fate. Despite the passage of time, the unresolved mystery continues to haunt everyone involved. Keith's disappearance represents a disconcerting case that evokes contemplation, a writer becoming lost in his own work to the extent of becoming part of it. The convergence of two men residing in the same space and experiencing similar outcomes, and the sorrow of an individual searching for them, only to vanish without a trace. While some view Keith's disappearance as an inexplicable enigma, others interpret it as a clear-cut case of an inexperienced hiker lost in the unforgiving wilderness of Colorado. Regardless of perspective, the fact remains that a family lost a father and a husband, leaving behind a void that perpetuates this sad and perplexing mystery. Three main theories have emerged over the years, progressing from the least plausible to the most likely. The first proposed that both Keith Reinhardt and Tom Young encountered someone or something on the mountain that led to their murders. However, the lack of evidence and the extensive search efforts conducted by numerous individuals in the area diminish the credibility of this theory. Another possibility is that Keith staged his own disappearance, intending to embark on a new life elsewhere. While understandable, considering his struggles and aspirations, the absence of any trace or activity from Keith in the years following his vanishing makes this theory less tenable. Lastly, it is plausible that Keith and Tom Young simply stumbled upon something or someone that posed a threat, leading to their respective fates. However, the absence of concrete evidence or substantial clues makes it challenging to support this theory definitively. The mysterious woman Keith was seen conversing with at the party remains an intriguing aspect of the case. However, without further information, it is difficult to ascertain her role or the significance of their discussion. Despite the numerous theories, the story of Keith Reinhardt's disappearance remains shrouded in uncertainty and speculation. Ultimately, the truth eludes us, and the haunting mystery of Keith's fate endures, leaving his family and those invested in the case yearning for resolution. The tale of a man vanishing and then disappearing himself is reminiscent of something that one would encounter in a movie. It possesses substantial material for those inclined to delve into, yet ultimately relies on conjecture and speculation. The allure lies in its mystery, but when reality seeps into the narrative, its appeal diminishes. Did Keith truly abandon his family, wife, job, and entire life to embark on a risky venture of starting anew? It takes a certain kind of person, and not in a positive sense, to accomplish such a feat. A person devoid of conscience, or with a blunted sense of it. This characterization doesn't seem to align with Keith's personality. Furthermore, we must consider Keith's aspirations to complete his cherished novel. Would he have forsaken this dream along with everything else? It appears illogical to me. Instead, it seems more plausible that he ventured into the same area where Tom Young was found to seek further inspiration in the forest and on the mountains. However, Keith's lack of experience, equipment, and planning might have resulted in a disastrous outcome. Now let's explore the final theory. If you have never hiked in a densely wooded and mountainous area, you cannot comprehend the overwhelming nature of it. Having lived in the mountains myself, I frequently hear stories in the news about individuals, even experienced hikers, getting lost in nearby parks and forests. When disoriented and uncertain of one's path, panic sets in, intensifying as daylight fades. Today, most people bring GPS units, weapons, and communication devices, although the wilderness often hampers cell phone signals. In contrast, Keith set off from Silver Plume with nothing but the clothes on his back and perhaps a can of soda. These preparations are insufficient for a nighttime hike into the mountains, even for a seasoned hiker familiar with the area. Keith's background suggests that he was a city person working in the Chicago suburbs, without prior experience in such endeavors. The mountains of Clear Creek County host several predators, including black bears, bobcats, elk, and mountain lions. Considering the isolated location and the dense forest cover, it is plausible that their numbers are higher than in more frequented areas. Search teams describe the area as perilous, with sharp slopes, rocks, and treacherous cliffs. One can easily envision Keith getting injured or even killed by wildlife or the hazardous terrain. In darkness, the chances of survival diminish further. The search for Keith was akin to searching for a needle in a haystack, assuming he was still alive. If he had fallen into a cavern or off a cliff, locating him would have been nearly impossible. He might have been unconscious, tucked away in a remote and obscure spot within the vast expanse. The lack of supplies also impeded his ability to leave behind any trace. Although I'm drawn to the intrigue of a compelling mystery, this particular case seems more focused on perpetuating a legend than confronting the probable reality. For law enforcement, search teams, and many who have scrutinized the case, the likelihood of Keith returning on his own after venturing into the wilderness at night is slim. The disappearance of Keith Reinhardt represents a sorrowful tale of a man's quest to find himself, resulting in the loss of everything. For some, it will always revolve around foul play, despite the absence of evidence. While it cannot be definitively ruled out, for others, it serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of venturing into the wilderness unprepared and inexperienced. Even after 30 years, Keith's family continues to wonder what became of him. While there is a glimmer of hope that answers may surface someday, the realization remains that the forest might conceal dark secrets. After 3 decades, if Keith did enter into the forest and became lost, injured, or met an untimely end, there may be little, if anything, left to discover. If you've enjoyed this content from Universe of Mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Welcome back to a Universe of Mystery. Today, we delve into a captivating mystery surrounding British actor Julian Sands, an avid hiker and lover of the outdoors. It all started on a fateful Friday evening in the breathtaking Mount Baldy area, a rugged and challenging terrain, especially during winter conditions. Reported missing on January 13th, 2023 by his wife at the age of 65, Julian Sands embarked on a solo hiking adventure, heading towards the perilous Mount Baldy. The news of his disappearance sent the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Air Operation crews into action, tirelessly scouring the mountain as weather conditions permitted. His car was found at the Manker Flats trailhead area, adding to the puzzling nature of the case. For those unfamiliar with Julian Sands, he is renowned for his appearances in a variety of films, including classics like Room with a View, Arachnophobia, and Warlock. He has even portrayed diverse roles in television shows like 24, Smallville, and Banshee. As the search for Julian continued, the mountain itself has proven to be treacherous, with 14 rescue missions being undertaken by sheriff's officials, unfortunately resulting in loss of lives, including 56-year-old Crystal Gonzalez Landis, a devoted hiker and mother of 4, who tragically slid down Mount Baldy over 500 feet. Despite the risks and warnings, the allure of the outdoors still calls to adventurous souls. In the midst of this baffling disappearance, the San Gabriel Mountains have also been the focus of search efforts for the 61-year-old body of Bob Gregory of Hawthorne, California, yet another hiker who vanished without a trace. Now let's dive deeper into Julian Sands' illustrious career. Born on January 4th, 1958, Julian's acting journey began in the early 80s and persisted until the very day that he vanished. His talent shone brightly in movies like The Killing Fields, Boxing Elena, Leaving Las Vegas, and A Room with a View. More recently, he was involved in Project Seneca, a film centered around the creation of earthquakes. Julian Sands' disappearance has garnered international attention, with close friends like John Malkovich publicly expressing their concern and grief. The question lingers in everyone's mind: what could have happened to Julian Sands? Was it an unforeseen accident or something more enigmatic? As we explore the circumstances leading up to his disappearance, we must remain cautious, especially when venturing into challenging terrains like Mount Baldy, where nature can be both beautiful and unforgiving. Join us as we dive into this captivating case, analyzing every aspect of Julian Sands' life, his love for the outdoors, and what may have compelled him to take on the majestic Mount Baldy. So grab your hiking gear and let's embark on this captivating journey together. Julian Sands, a man who truly embraced the great outdoors and physical activity. For Julian, hiking was not just a hobby. It was a way to hit the reset button and find balance amid the demands of his profession. In his own words, he declared, "I'm happiest being close to the mountain summit on a glorious cold morning." But what made this particular morning different from the rest? Before delving deeper into Julian's disappearance, let's first explore the majestic Mount Baldy and the San Bernardino mountain area, gaining an understanding of the challenges both Julian and the search and rescue teams faced. Mount Baldy, though a popular destination for outdoor enthusiasts, has a dark and unfortunate past, having claimed the lives of many hikers over the years. News reports have often highlighted the dangers of this mountain, and Julian is not the first to vanish without a trace. Unfortunately, others before him have met similar fates, some found deceased with injuries ranging from falls to exposure, while others have never been located or ever seen again. Situated in the San Gabriel Mountains of San Bernardino County, California, Mount Baldy is surrounded by a picturesque national forest. The area boasts a rich history dating back a century, with various tales to be told, but we will focus on the key elements of the Julian Sands case for now. The climate on Mount Baldy exhibits extremes, with temperatures plummeting to -10 degrees during cooler months and soaring close to 100 degrees in the warmer ones. Annual snowfall ranges between 50 to 60 inches, accompanied by frequent precipitation. Despite its challenges, Mount Baldy remains open year-round and attracts thousands of visitors each season. The mountain offers a range of hikes to suit diverse preferences and skills. Among the popular trails are the 10-mile Bridge to Nowhere and East Fork Trail, the 1.5-mile San Antonio Falls Trail, the 11-mile Mount Baldy Notch Trail, and the 12-mile Icehouse Canyon to the Cucamonga Peak Trail, to name just a few. These hikes vary in difficulty, from easy strolls to advanced treks, appealing to hikers of all types. While the specific trail Sands chose is not mentioned in the search and rescue details, it is likely he opted for the Mount Baldy Summit Trail. This trail, considered the easiest route to the peak at an impressive 10,069 feet in elevation, starts at the top of Notch Restaurant and follows the Devil's Backbone, spanning approximately 7 miles round trip with an elevation gain of 2,200 feet. Alternatively, some hikers opt for the service road from the ski area parking lot to the top of Notch Restaurant, a shorter 6-mile option with a more strenuous elevation gain of 3,500 feet. Reaching the summit offers a breathtaking reward, a vast, flat, and treeless panoramic view of Southern California's cities, deserts, mountains, and oceans, which aptly earns the mountain its name, Mount Baldy. Given Julian's adventurous spirit, he may have taken a more challenging route to the summit, but specific details to support this theory remain elusive. The search and rescue effort focused on the location where he was last seen, leaving us wondering what they had to say about the circumstances of his disappearance. Let's delve deeper into the surrounding geography, as it plays a crucial role in understanding the challenges Julian faced. The vast Angeles National Forest, spanning approximately 700,000 acres, engulfs the San Gabriel and the Sierra Pelona Mountains. Established in 1908, this national forest primarily lies within LA County, with a small portion extending into southwestern San Bernardino County. With this expanse, one can find several nationally designated wilderness areas, each with its unique charm. The Cucamonga Wilderness, the Magic Mountain Wilderness, Pleasant View Ridge Wilderness, the San Gabriel Wilderness, and Sheep Mountains Wilderness. With so much wilderness to explore, one can easily see how it can be easy to get lost in this vast and beautiful landscape. A significant factor in Julian's case was the weather. As mentioned earlier, the conditions in January were far from favorable. The winter season in the area can be harsh, with powerful storms battering the region one after the other, bringing severe winter weather. Unfortunately, it so happened that Julian entered the park during one of the most challenging times of the year, making the search effort even more complicated. The search effort was massive and involved the collaboration of hundreds of professional search and rescue personnel from various agencies, making it one of the largest search operations in modern times. Agencies like the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, Fontana Sheriff's Station, West Valley Search and Rescue Division, the California Highway Patrol, local and state law enforcement, and park officials all came together to coordinate the first round of searches. Initially, the focus was on the Mount Baldy area, but as time went on, the search zone expanded to include surrounding trails and wilderness areas within the Angeles National Forest. Searchers attempted to narrow down their efforts by focusing on a specific area of the trail where the California Highway Patrol's RICO device indicated a possible electronic signal during the early days of the investigation. Julian's silver Volvo was found at the trailhead, covered in a thin layer of snow, suggesting that it had been sitting untouched for several days by that point. However, there were no clues inside the vehicle to indicate what might have happened to Julian, and everything appeared to be in order. Despite the dedication and the use of technology such as canines, helicopters, drones with FLIR technology, the search efforts were continuously hampered by relentless winter storms, forcing operations to halt for days at a time. On February 25th, a month after Julian's disappearance, the search effort was scaled back due to lack of leads, limited resources, and the persistent winter weather. The heartbreaking realization that the effort had to shift from a rescue to a recovery operation weighed heavily on everyone involved, including Julian's friends and family, who were holding on to hope for his safe return. Regrettably, Julian's case is not an isolated incident. Over the years, since 2020, more than 100 search operations have been conducted for missing hikers on Mount Baldy, resulting in 6 confirmed fatalities as of February 2023. This somber statistic paints an even darker picture of the treacherous winter conditions that plague the mountain at the start of each new year. As we continue our exploration, we must now consider the possibilities of what occurred in the vast wilderness of Mount Baldy during those winter days. The challenges posed by the environment and the history of previous missing hikers serves as a reminder of the perils that can befall even the most experienced adventurers in this breathtaking yet unforgivable landscape. Let us proceed with caution and empathy as we seek to uncover the truth behind Julian Sand's enigmatic disappearance amidst the stunning but unpredictable wilderness of Mount Baldy. According to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, Julian was one of 3 hikers who went missing in the Mount Baldy area during the month of January. Jin Chung, a 75-year-old man from North Hollywood, was reported missing on Sunday, January 22nd, after his hike at Mount Baldy. Fortunately, he was found safe a few days later, although he did suffer from some weather-related injuries. On January 18th, another hiker, 61-year-old Robert Gregory from Hawthorne, California, went missing after failing to return home from his hike near Mount Islip, located in the Angeles National Forest. Sadly, Mr. Gregory's body was discovered exactly 1 month later, on February 18th, approximately 300 feet below the summit of Mount Islip. Even for the experienced outdoor enthusiast, Mount Baldy can prove to be treacherous and yield disastrous results if not properly prepared. The dangers that lurk on the mountain should serve as a stern reminder of the importance of adequate preparation and caution. Unfortunately, despite these dangers, the allure of the outdoors and the spirit of adventure will likely continue to draw people to explore the wilderness. One possible scenario that comes to mind about Julian Sand's disappearance, albeit an unfortunate one, is the kind we fear but anticipate given the history of accidents on Mount Baldy. It is not difficult to imagine a similar scenario playing out for Julian, as it takes just one wrong move, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Julian could have suffered a fall, leaving him trapped or incapacitated. The weather on January 13th did not offer much forgiveness, with temperatures ranging from the upper 40s during the day to freezing at night, accompanied by high winds, sleet, and snow. Hypothermia from exposure could have been a significant risk, but if that were the case, why were the searchers unable to find him? In such situations, when a person becomes injured or exposed to the elements, they often get disoriented, losing their sense of direction. Lost hikers can end up in areas that seem to defy logic, straying completely off course from their intended routes. Dehydration sets in over time, leading individuals to make poor decisions out of desperation, much like those lost at sea, who may drink seawater or attempt to reach an imaginary island caused by a mirage. In the wilderness, a similar phenomenon can occur in an emergency situation, with people wandering into oblivion, eventually being swallowed up by the unforgiving wilderness. Although animal predation is possible, there is no evidence to suggest that it played a role in Julian's disappearance. Mount Baldy is not excessively tall, and predators like mountain lions are more likely to be seen in lower elevations during colder months in search of food. Nonetheless, the rugged environment of Mount Baldy poses enough natural dangers, and Julian's case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of preparation and respect for nature's unpredictability. Another less explored scenario revolves around the potential of foul play. While it may seem far-fetched, we have all heard the disturbing stories of obsessed fans fixated on their favorite celebrities. Although Julian's disappearance might not have been linked to such a scenario, we cannot dismiss the possibility of encountering individuals with sinister intentions in remote areas. Alternatively, it could have been a simple exchange gone awry, or Julian might have unintentionally angered someone else on the trail. In the past, unfortunate accidents have occurred due to carelessness, as seen in the 2007 incident where a hiker's life was lost due to rocks tossed carelessly down a mountain, oblivious to those below. Delving into Julian's personal life, it is worth considering whether he might have been experiencing deeper personal struggles that were unknown to the public. Although he enjoyed a successful acting career, could he have felt stagnant or unfulfilled? The stresses of an ever-changing industry might have led him to seek solace in the outdoors, as he often did to balance his professional life. Nonetheless, such feelings can pass with time, but for some, they may prove overwhelming. At times, the allure of escape can be strangely appealing, but I don't imply that Julian had any desire to disappear. We can't ignore the possibility, as we've seen in other cases where individuals sought such an escape. While I personally do not believe this scenario in Julian's case, it is essential to explore every angle to uncover the truth. The events leading up to his disappearance remain a mystery, making it difficult to determine exactly what transpired on that day. However, something tells me that the answers we seek may not be too far away, and perhaps once found, we'll realize the clues were right in front of us all along. Intriguingly, overconfidence could be a factor worth considering. Oftentimes we hear stories of experienced outdoor enthusiasts who, despite their familiarity with the area, bite off more than they can chew. Positive experiences on previous trips may not guarantee the same outcome on subsequent ones. Hence, it is essential to remain vigilant and prepared, even in familiar territories. In the case of Julian's disappearance, we cannot help but feel that this case is shrouded in uncertainty, much like the enigmatic persona of Julian himself. Apart from the myriad roles he portrayed in the illustrious career that he had, Julian was captivating in his own right. Many were drawn to his charisma, wisdom, kindness, and friendship. Yet, despite his admirable qualities, Julian remained somewhat of a mystery, concealing aspects of himself from the world. On June 24th, 2023, the news of Julian Sands' tragic end has deeply saddened the world. A body discovered in the wilderness near Mount Baldy, California, has now been officially confirmed to be that of the missing British actor. After transporting the body to the coroner's office for identification, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department released a statement stating that the body had been positively identified as Julian Sands, the 65-year-old actor. The search for Julian Sands had been a coordinated effort by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, with Mount Baldy's challenging terrain in the San Gabriel Mountains proving to be a formidable obstacle for rescuers. The inclement weather hampered the ground searches, causing delays and difficulty in finding Sands. Despite the effort of over 80 people in a renewed search on the 17th of June, they were unable to locate him. Consequently, the sheriff's office made the difficult decision to scale back the search. Julian Sands' family, in their first statement in 4 months, expressed their profound gratitude to the search teams and spoke of their enduring love for the actor, remembering him as a wonderful father, husband, explorer, and lover of the natural wonder and of the arts. John Malkovich, a close friend of Julian Sands for 4 decades since they met on the set of The Killing Fields in 1983, paid a heartfelt tribute to him. As their film Seneca on the Creation of Earthquakes premiered at the Berlin Film Festival in February, Malkovich expressed his deep affection for Sands and the tremendous loss felt by all who knew him. He described Sands as exceptionally clever and an exceptional storyteller, adding that their friendship allowed them to talk about anything with each other. Julian Sands was not only known for his talent and versatility as an actor, but also cherished for his engaging personality, sense of humor, and ability to connect with others. As the world mourns the loss of this exceptional individual, we remember him for the impact he left on the lives of those who were fortunate enough to know him. May his memory live on, and may he continue to inspire us through his contributions to the arts and the enduring connections he forged with his loved ones and friends. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming content. On April 6, 2017, 22-year-old Jacob Gray went missing while traveling on the Salduc Hot Springs Road in the Olympic National Park of Washington State. His whereabouts remain unknown until August 10, 2018, when his body was discovered in Hole Lake, located within the Daniel J. Evans Wilderness area of the park. The location was 15 miles away from his belongings and at an elevation of 5,300 feet. This is the story of Jacob Gray. Jacob Gray, a native of Santa Cruz, California, embarked on a solo bicycle trip from Port Townsend, Washington on April 5, 2017, hauling a fully loaded trailer of camping equipment. His ultimate destination was the Daniel J. Evans Wilderness and Olympic National Park in Washington, before continuing eastward. However, on April 6th, Gray's bicycle, trailer, and most of his belongings were found approximately 6.5 miles up Salduc Hot Springs Road, a picturesque route named after the Indian term for sparkling waters. An unusual discovery was made. A bow was lying on the ground, and arrows were embedded in the ground and protruding from the back of the trailer, but there was no sign of the bike's owner. Jacob Gray's bicycle had a unique backstory. It was a promotional bike won by his father, Randy, at a contractor's show. As the son of a house builder, Gray was skilled with a saw and constructed a plywood rack behind the seat to secure 2 milk crates side by side. The bike's flat pedals were suitable for his running shoes or hiking boots, and while it wasn't built for speed or looks, it was practical and efficient, much like a pickup truck. When it came to camping gear, Gray had a preferred shopping destination, the Goodwill store in Port Townsend, Washington. There, he gathered the items for his journey. Despite the harsh weather conditions that characterized northwestern Washington in the early days of April, Jacob, a skilled surfer who had grown up on the beach, remained undeterred. He had a deep connection with the water, which energized him in all its forms, whether he was surfing on it or simply swimming in it. According to his father, Randy, Jacob's love for the water had been cultivated from a young age, and it was evident in the way he fearlessly rode the waves, regardless of weather conditions. Despite the challenges posed by the harsh weather, Jacob's enthusiasm for his trip remained unwavering. There were a few reported sightings of Jacob, but they were not very helpful in locating him. However, some of the sightings seemed credible. For instance, a man claimed to have seen Jacob twice in Indian Valley and along Crescent Lake on April 5th. The next day, a woman reported seeing a man towing a red trailer climbing Fairholme until 1 o'clock in the morning. Later that same morning, another woman passed Jacob as he was riding up the Salduc Hot Springs Road, which was about 2 miles from the 101. Later that afternoon, the same woman noticed Jacob's rig on the side of the road, which was 6.5 miles upriver from the 101. She was curious enough to snap a quick photo of the abandoned contraption, which was a flash of red and yellow against the green of the forest. However, it wasn't a good place to camp or stash a bike for long, as it was highly visible, not 10 yards from the road and only 20 yards from the river. Despite these sightings, Jacob's whereabouts remain unknown. A ranger had recalled seeing the bike in gear, but didn't think much of it, assuming that the rider was on a short excursion on foot. This wasn't uncommon in the area, since touring cyclists were a common sight, and Jacob was the first of many to come. It was evident that someone, possibly Jacob, had been organizing gear, as there was a poly tarp spread out surrounded by camping equipment. However, what caught the ranger's attention were 4 arrows stuck in the ground in an east-west line near the tarp. While going missing isn't a crime or an emergency for individuals over the age of 18, a person isn't considered missing until someone reports them as such. In this case, nobody had reported Jacob missing at all. It was rare for a cyclist to vanish, unlike hikers and runners. However, the fact that the bike remained untouched for most of the day piqued the ranger's curiosity. On the afternoon of April 6th, Ranger John Bowie searched the area around the bike, hoping to find any clues. He wondered if the cyclist had gone to the river to filter some water or hitchhike to the hot springs. But if he had slipped and fallen into the sub-40-degree weather, he would surely have succumbed to the elements. The following is the actual missing persons dispatch call to park rangers.
That's 741 Ron on North Plain.
741 Ron.
I've got a bicycle that has went off the Salt Duck Road about mile marker 7, and I can't find anybody around it. You might want to send a ranger up here so we can see what's going on.
Copy, thanks for the info. 1630.
741 Ron, 611. 741 Ron, Detective Lee, on North Point. I'll head that way. Is that bicycle down the bank a ways, or is it easy to get to?
It's easy to get to. It's got a little carrier on the back of it, too. It looked like it crashed off the road.
Okay, so it didn't look like maybe somebody hit it there so you can go off for a hike.
It doesn't look like anybody's hit it. It looks like he just went off the road. I'm going to stay here until you get up this way.
Okay, I'll be coming over from Viola.
741 Ron.
When Ranger Bowie stumbled upon the bike and trailer, his heart sank as he feared the worst. However, to his relief, they were in excellent condition, fully operational with no signs of damage or malfunction. The trailer was loaded with a ton of equipment, which indicated that the owner had come fully prepared for his adventure. Despite the reassuring state of the bike and trailer, the Rangers couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. Their worst fears were confirmed when they scoured the Salt Duck Hot Springs Resort, and no one had seen the owner. They suspected that he may have fallen into the river, but they had to keep searching to be sure. On that fateful Friday, Ranger Ray stumbled upon Jacob's wallet, ID, and a list of phone numbers. It confirmed the owner's identity, but it also heightened their concerns for his safety. Ray immediately contacted Jacob's sister, Mallory, and upon hearing the news, she implored Ray to call their parents in Santa Cruz right away, hoping they could help in the search and bring Jacob home safely. All signs seemed to point to the river as the likely location of Jacob's disappearance. The Olympic National Park Rangers concluded that he may have slipped and fallen into the water while trying to filter it into his camelback. They planned to search the river more thoroughly when the water levels went down in the summer. Jacob's mother, Laura, had spoken to him just a few nights before he set out on his journey. She knew that he was excited to embark on a cross-country tour to visit his brother in Vermont. Jacob had even mentioned that he might take 2 years to complete the trip, working on jobs and seasonal work along the way. When Jacob's mother reached out to the Rangers for help, They explained that their park was extremely understaffed and overburdened. The park covered an area that was 200,000 acres larger than Yosemite and received almost 4 million visitors each year. Unfortunately, due to budget cuts in 2013, nearly 2/3 of their law enforcement personnel had been transferred to other parks and not replaced. To compound their already overloaded situation, within a week of Jacob's bike being found, there were 2 other incidents in the park, a plane crash and another missing person. The Rangers were stretched thin and simply didn't have the resources or personnel to conduct a full-scale search for Jacob. It was a heartbreaking situation for Laura and Jacob's loved ones, who were left feeling helpless and frustrated by the lack of support from the park authorities. Randy, Jacob's father, dropped his hammer gun and threw his wetsuit into his truck when he heard the news. Rangers told him the bike was found near the river, and Randy had a sense he'd be searching the swift water. He picked up Mallory and sped north, driving the 1,000 miles from Santa Cruz straight through. When Randy and Mallory arrived at the park, 5 days had already passed since the Rangers first discovered Jacob's abandoned bike. Other family members and friends, including Jacob's mother Laura, flew into SeaTac and drove to the park for what ended up being a tragic search and rescue mission. The family was surprised to learn that no Ranger-assisted search had been launched yet. Unfortunately, national parks operate like sovereign countries, and search and rescue personnel from outside the park must be requested by park officials to initiate a search. Jacob's bike was discovered just 40 feet away from the river, which was 40 feet wide at the high water mark. On the other side of the river is Olympic National Forest, which is under a different jurisdiction. Unlike national parks, national forests operate under the county model, and the Cullum County Sheriff's Department is responsible for search and rescue there, which is only a stone's throw away from the park. Randy and Danny suited up and entered the river, but they sensed lethargy from the park officials and decided to take matters into their own hands. The family demanded an intense search, and Ranger Ray agreed to their request. Randy searched behind waterfalls, in deep holes, and under log jams, while Mallory kicked through ferns, looking for any evidence. The family was surprised to find that the park had not requested any outside assistance, such as dog teams or aircraft from Woodley Island Naval Air Station. Randy bushwhacked through thick brush and thorny Devil's Club in the rain, suffering from trench foot due to wet socks. Despite his physical discomfort, he remained determined to find his son alive. Surprisingly, the Coast Guard, based in Port Angeles, was not requested for assistance, nor were aircraft from Woodley Island Naval Air Station, which has been known to assist with some Olympic Park searches. Time was of the essence in the search and rescue operation, and the delay of 5 days and the lack of assistance from neighboring agencies greatly reduced the chances of finding Jacob alive. It was a devastating realization for the family, who were left feeling let down by the system and desperate for answers. After the discovery of the bike on April 6, 2017, the Clallam County Sheriff's Office conducted a search the following day with the help of approximately 30 people and dogs, but their efforts were fruitless. Olympic Mountain Rescue was called in nearly a week later on April 12th, and during their search, they found evidence suggesting that someone had exchanged hiking boots for running shoes, walked towards the river, and slipped and had fallen into it, leaving a mark on a mossy rock further downstream. There were signs the individual may have attempted to climb out. However, a state fisheries biologist was assigned to look through the log jams in the river instead of swift water search and rescue. On April 13th, the search for the individual became a search for a body instead of a live cyclist, and dog teams were brought in. 2 cadaver dogs indicated a log jam where a corpse might be trapped, but after searching all log jams for 12 miles on both sides of the bike area, nobody was found. The search operation continued in Olympic National Park throughout the week, but on April 14th, the park transitioned to a limited continuous search, effectively ending the search by Olympic Rangers. After a period of over a year, specifically on the late afternoon of Friday, August 10th, 2018, a group of biologists embarked on a trip into the mountains to study marmots. During their expedition, they stumbled upon the remains, clothing, and gear of Jacob Gray. The discovery was made at the top of a ridge located above Hole Lake, approximately 5,300 feet above sea level, and at a distance of at least 15 miles from where he abandoned his bicycle. The location where Jacob's remains were discovered was not near any trail, and during the time of his disappearance, which was in April, the terrain would have been covered in snow and potentially prone to avalanches. The remains were found on a treeless ridge, which could have been visible from the air. The story of Jacob Cray can serve as a cautionary tale for other hikers and can help them be more aware and prepared for the potential dangers of hiking in the wilderness. It highlights the importance of being prepared, taking safety precautions, being cautious, and communicating plans with others before heading out on a hike. By taking these steps, hikers can minimize risks and enjoy a safer and more enjoyable hiking experience in the wilderness. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming content. In the heart of Marshall, Minnesota, a tale of mystery and intrigue unfolds. Born on a cold winter's day in January 1989, Brandon Swanson was a young man with a promising future. He was a dedicated student at the Minnesota West Community and Technical College, studying wind turbines, a testament to his commitment to a greener, brighter future. On May 13, 2008, the academic year drew to a close, and Brandon, like his peers, celebrated the milestone. 2 parties, 2 dorms, and a night of merriment, yet Brandon was responsible. He drank, but with caution, knowing he had a journey home to undertake.
That he was fine, that he was not injured, and, in fact, when we did find his vehicle, there was no damage to it. It was simply muddy from being on a gravel road, but no damage to the vehicle. As Brandon tried to explain to us where his location was, and he was extremely sure of himself. He felt confident in where he was at, and that we were the ones that were confused about, how to get to him. And as the conversation went on, as the minutes ticked by, it came to a point where as long as Brandon was on the phone, as long as he was talking, as long as we had contact, it was okay. We would be okay. But the minute that call dropped, I just became sick. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was very, very bad, and just could hardly fathom. We didn't immediately hang up the phone. We called his name. We tried to, thinking that he still had the phone, that it was very near him, that he could pick it up. He'd hear our voice, and we called out to him several times, and we realized, he's not there. So we did. We called him back several times, thinking, he'll see the phone light up. Even if he didn't have it on ring, he would see his phone light up when the call came in. He'd find it. He'd answer the call, and it just didn't happen. Time and again, it just went unanswered.
As the clock struck midnight, Brandon bid his friends farewell, climbed into his Chevrolet Lumina, and embarked on what should have been a straightforward 30-mile drive back to Marshall. But fate had other plans. At 1:45 a.m., Brandon's journey took an unexpected turn. His car, now nestled in a roadside ditch, and Brandon, near blind in one eye due to a childhood injury, found himself lost and disoriented. He reached out to his parents, Brian and Annette, who immediately set out to find him. But the night was dark, and Brandon's exact location remained a mystery. His parents, guided by his voice over the phone, searched for him along Highway 68, but to no avail. The only clue: the distant lights of a town, possibly Lind, a small town southwest of Marshall. With hope in their hearts, Brian and Annette directed their son towards the town, planning to meet at a familiar spot, a popular bar and grills parking lot. As Brandon trekked through the fields, his parents on the other end of the line, a sudden scream pierced the silence. Then, nothing. Attempts to reconnect were futile. Brandon's phone remained unanswered, and the chilling realization that something was terribly wrong began to set in. Despite their desperate pleas, local law enforcement dismissed their concerns, suggesting that it was not unusual for a young man to stay out all night. In the face of adversity, Brandon's parents found themselves pleading with Lynn's chief of police for help. Their pleas were finally heard, and a search party was assembled. Hours later, the abandoned Chevy was found, just as Brandon had described, nestled in a ditch, but Brandon himself was nowhere to be found. The search intensified with multiple teams, bloodhounds, and helicopters scouring the area around Yellow Medicine County, where Brandon's cell phone was traced. A glimmer of hope emerged when one of the dogs picked up a scent, leading the search party along a 3-mile trail towards an abandoned farm and then the Yellow Medicine River, but the trail ended there, abruptly, with no sign of Brandon. The theory that Brandon may have fallen into the river and drowned began to circulate. Despite thorough searches of the river, no trace of Brandon was ever found. As the days turned into weeks, the search was scaled back, and chances of finding Brandon alive dwindling with each passing moment. Yet, hope was not entirely lost. Brandon's parents, along with their community, kept their porch lights on, a beacon of hope in the dark, signaling their belief that Brandon would return. They continued to search the area along the Yellow Medicine River daily for the next month. By the fall of 2008, a large cross-country task force was organized to search the freshly harvested fields surrounding Highway 68. Cadaver dogs picked up a scent of human remains in a previously unsearched area, but no physical evidence was found. Theories began to circulate, some suggesting that Brandon may have accidentally been killed by farming equipment. By spring 2011, despite a massive search covering more than 122 square miles, not a single usable lead was found. It was as if Brandon had just vanished from the face of the earth. Theories abound, but evidence is scarce. Did Brandon drown that night? Did he run away from home? Or was he a victim of foul play? The sheriff believes the latter, citing Brandon's final terrified exclamation as a clue. Could someone have been lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike? Some suggest that Brandon fell prey to a serial killer, perhaps a long-haul trucker. Others speculate that he was abducted and held captive, possibly trafficked. In the absence of solid evidence, all possibilities must be considered, no matter how eccentric they may seem. The hope that Brandon is alive and might one day return is a beacon in the darkness of uncertainty. The alternative is too grim to contemplate. A promising young man, snatched away from the world. His parents left to grieve, haunted by the memory of his last moments. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Welcome back to a universe of mystery. Today, we'll delve into an enigmatic tale of Glacier State National Park, nestled in the heart of western Montana. This is the chilling accounts of two men who vanished within its confines, their fates forever shrouded in mystery. These men, lost to the records of time, have never been found, neither in life nor in death. In the summer of 1924, a tale of tragedy unfolded. Two brothers, Joseph and William Whitehead, disappeared without a trace amidst the forest and majestic mountains of Glacier State National Park. Their fate remains a mystery, their bodies never recovered. Their story began in a 20-mile stretch between the Granite Park Chalet and Lake McDonald. Joseph, the elder brother, at 29, was an engineer for the Universal Battery Company in Chicago, Illinois. His younger brother, William, aged 22, was a student at MIT in Boston, Massachusetts. Their photos depict them as impeccably groomed and well-dressed gentlemen. Letters penned to their mother revealed their kind, reserved, and respectful nature. They had been exploring the wilderness of Glacier National Park for over a week at the time of their disappearance. Their journey took them to Iceberg Lake, Cracker Lake, and Grinnell Glacier, traveling by car, boat, and horseback from Glacier Park Lodge to Granite Park Chalet. They were on an adventure of a lifetime. Their journey was supposed to continue with a 20-mile hike from the chalet to the Lewis Hotel, now known as Lake McDonald Lodge. On August 24th, they planned to board the Great Northern Railroad, bound for their home of Chicago. These young men were cautious and conservative, not the type to court danger or embark on reckless adventures. On August 20th, 1924, just 4 days before their disappearance, Joseph wrote to his mother, saying, "We are enjoying ourselves very much and taking no chances of injuring ourselves. Don't worry, Mother, we won't get into any danger." 4 days later, on a bright Sunday morning, they left the Granite Park Chalet on foot, their smiles as bright as their hiking pants, and headed into the forest towards the Lewis Hotel at Lake McDonald. Their mother waited for them at the Chicago train station on September 1st, but her sons never disembarked the train. Thus began an extensive search for the brothers, with even the president, Calvin Coolidge, urging the park rangers to spare no expense in finding the young men. Despite the efforts of 13 rangers, 2 renowned Native American guides, and 7 tribe mountaineers, the brothers remained lost. The search became national news, and the nation mourned as the Whitehead brothers seemed to have vanished into thin air. As the snows approached, the search turned into a recovery mission, with the park's chief ranger and superintendent, Charles Crabble, launching another massive effort. The investigation even considered criminal possibilities, with J. Edgar Hoover himself, the new chief of the Young Bureau of Investigation, personally overseeing the efforts. But clues quickly ran dry. The patience of Dora B. Whitehead, the boy's mother, was wearing thin. Even the involvement of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI yielded no results. Not a single trace of the brothers were ever discovered. Many believed that the brothers met an accidental or tragic end. Yet, some speculated that they fell victim to foul play, possibly at the hands of local bootleggers. However, no evidence ever surfaced to support either of these theories. Dora began to lend credence to the rumors of foul play and bootlegging. She penned a heartfelt letter to the Secretary of the Interior, pleading, "I want my 2 sons, dead or alive. Surely, I am not asking too much. They belong to me. I have a right to them. My 2 sons were murdered or kidnapped in a national park, and I am pleading with the government of the United States to find them." Despite exhaustive investigations into the disappearance, the mystery remained unsolved. It has been said that the vanishing of the Whitehead brothers is the most baffling and inexplicable enigma on record. However, this case served as a greater purpose. It forever changed the role of park rangers. Their duties expanded beyond preserving wildlife and natural resources to include protection, search, and rescue of park visitors. Decades have passed, and the glacier wilderness remains silent, revealing no clues about the fate of the Whitehead brothers. This silence extends not only to their case, but also to other strange disappearances. These cases have become even more peculiar due to the complete absence of evidence or clues, leading to their categorization as lost and never found in the wilds of Glacier National Park. Now we'll explore a chilling tale that revolves around an illicit hiking trail in Hawaii and a young man who ventured into it, never to be seen again. Did he unknowingly capture an image of his assailant moments before his demise? Let's unravel this enigma together. Dalen Mokapua, a young man from Big Island, Hawaii, was visiting family of Oahu for a day's hike. Oahu, known for its capital Honolulu and the infamous Pearl Harbor, is home to approximately 995,000 residents. Despite its small size, it has a significantly higher crime rate than other American communities, particularly in the region of Hawaii Place. In this area lies the infamous Stairway to Heaven, also known as the Haiku Stairs. This several-mile hike through steep mountain jungle terrain was constructed in 1942 during World War II for soldiers to build and access a radio antenna at the top of the valley. However, after numerous unexplained deaths and accidents, the trail was officially closed to the public in 1987. Despite this, many adventurers still attempt the hike, risking criminal trespassing charges. Dalen was a typical teenager, brave, boisterous, and confident. On February 27, 2015, he decided to hike the Forbidden Trail. He managed to evade security guards and ventured into the forest. His last known contact was a picture that he snapped at 11 a.m. off the trail. After that, his phone went silent. As the sun set, Dalen's grandmother, who had prepared dinner for him, grew increasingly worried. Her calls went straight to voicemail. She remembered Dalen mentioning the Stairway to Heaven the night before and her warnings about its dangers. She contacted the police, and a search and rescue operation was launched the next morning. In the days following Dalen's disappearance, police and relatives scrutinized the pictures he had sent before vanishing. In one photo, they spotted a man lurking in the background. Despite public appeals, the man was never identified. Was he involved in Dalen's disappearance, or was he just a passerby who might hold critical information? 3 days after Dalen's disappearance, several hikers in the area reported hearing screams for help. The chilling cries prompted immediate calls to the police. However, these reports led to no new discoveries, and the search operation was called off the next day. Dalen's case has since turned cold, and he is presumed to have gotten lost and died during his hike. His body and belongings have never been found. It's been nearly 8 years since Dalen's disappearance, and his family and friends have accepted that he is likely dead, whether by accident or foul play. The future of the Stairway to Heaven remains uncertain. The Ahu Board of Water and Supply, who currently owns the steps, plans to demolish the trail unless the council takes over. They no longer want to be held responsible for the danger that it poses. What are your thoughts on Dalen's disappearance? Do you believe the man in the photo had a role in his vanishing, or was it a tragic accident? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, a chilling tale from 2007 where a 55-year-old woman named Barbara Bullock, a fit and cheerful, full-of-life woman, vanished without a trace in Montana. Did she simply disappear into thin air during a hike? Let's unravel the enigma. In July of 2007, Barbara and her husband of 14 years welcomed her husband's cousin, Donna, and Donna's boyfriend, Jim, to their home for a short visit. On the evening of the 17th, Barbara proposed a hiking trip the next morning to her favorite spot, an untouched wilderness area on the Idaho border. Donna and Jim agreed, but the following morning, Donna fell ill and couldn't join. However, Jim was still up for the adventure, so he and Barbara embarked on the hike. At 1:30 that afternoon, Barbara's husband received a call from a police officer. His wife was missing. Confused and worried, he rushed to the park to hear Jim's account of what had transpired. Jim explained that they had reached the Bear Creek overlook, enjoyed a picnic, and admired the scenery. As they began their descent, Barbara was a few steps ahead. Jim paused to take one last look at the view, and when he turned back around, Barbara was gone. There was no sound, no sign of struggle, just an eerie silence. Jim searched for Barbara, expecting to find her behind a tree or a rock, but she was nowhere to be found. The silence was unnerving, and the lack of footsteps or sounds was baffling. He made his way down the trail, calling out for Barbara, but there was no response. When he reached the parking lot, Barbara's car was still there. He asked a road crew if they had seen anyone, but they hadn't. Panicked, Jim ran back up the trail, hoping to find some sign of Barbara, but there was nothing. A massive search operation was launched over the next 48 hours, involving helicopters, search teams, and trained dogs, but no trace of Barbara was found. There were no signs of foul play, an animal attack, or an abduction. Even her scent was undetectable, which is highly unusual. It was as if she had just simply vanished. Jim, the last person to see Barbara, was initially a suspect. However, his consistent story, cooperative attitude, and willingness to take a polygraph test led the police to rule him out. The search was eventually called off, leaving Barbara's family with no closure. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. No trace of Barbara has ever been found. Her disappearance is a chilling reminder of the inexplicable mysteries that lurk in the wilderness. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Now, we'll journey back in time to 1910 to a chilling tale of Orville Tuttle, a 23-year-old locomotive engineer from Whitehall, Montana. Orville was a man of many passions, but hunting was his true love. His friends often described him as a fearless hunter and a sharpshooter, and a man who remained calm under pressure. But one fateful hunting trip would change everything. In October of that year, Orville, along with his younger brother and cousin, ventured to a river valley just outside of Yellowstone National Park for a hunting expedition. They set up camp in a clearing within the forest, brushing off the snow to make space for their tents. After a night around the campfire, they retired early, ready for the hunt the next day. Orville was the first to rise the following morning. He noticed fresh elk tracks near their campsite and decided to follow them, promising his brother and cousin that he would return within an hour. But the hours ticked by. Orville did not return. His companions waited, their concern growing with each passing hour. By nightfall, Orville was still missing. They decided to sleep, hoping Orville would return by the following next morning. When dawn broke and Orville was still nowhere to be found, his brother and cousin left the forest to gather more family members. Together, they traced Orville's tracks through the thick forest and snow, leading them to a shallow river. The tracks continued alongside the river for 3 miles before stopping at a small clearing where a campfire had been set up but not lit. From there, Orville's tracks led directly into the shallow river, but no tracks were found ever leaving the river. Despite an extensive search by the sheriff's department and hundreds of volunteers, no trace of Orville was found. Then, on the third evening of the search, a searcher spotted a recently extinguished campfire in the mountains. A pair of boots nearby and barefoot tracks leading up a mountain. A figure was seen moving up the mountain, but despite calls and gunshots fired into the air, the figure did not stop or react, disappearing over the mountain's crest. Many believe this figure was Orville, but why didn't he respond to the calls or gunshots remains a mystery. Others speculate it was someone or something else, perhaps connected to Orville's disappearance, but despite these theories, no trace of Orville or the shoeless figure was ever found again. So we are left with the unsolved mystery. What happened to Orville Tuttle in the wilderness of Montana in 1910? Did he meet with an accident, or was there something more sinister at play? The answers remain as elusive as Orville himself. In 2006, nestled in the rugged terrain of Colorado, northwest of Canyon City, a peculiar incident unfolded that left many puzzled. The setting was a campground, perched at an elevation of over 7,000 feet, a landscape punctuated by steep limestone cliffs and narrow ravines. It was here that an 8-year-old boy named Evan Thompson mysteriously vanished. Evan was not your average child. He was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, or ADD, a condition that made him uniquely energetic and curious. On this particular occasion, Evan was accompanied by family, friends, and a teacher, all of whom were well aware of his condition. They were on a camping trip, a seemingly innocuous adventure that soon turned into a perplexing mystery. 3 days into the search for Evan, hope was dwindling. Despite the efforts of search teams from 5 counties, the military, and the Civil Air Patrol, Evan remained elusive. The last time anyone saw him was around 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. The search teams found fresh prints of Evan's Spider-Man logoed shoes on Sunday, suggesting that he had wandered off but hadn't gone far. Yet Evan was nowhere to be found. The terrain was challenging, and Evan was a child. He couldn't have gone far, or so they thought. Steve Sperry, a member of the El Paso County Search and Rescue Team, expressed his bewilderment. "For the life of me, I don't know why he hasn't turned up. He's an 8-year-old kid. He's not going to be mobile much longer because he'll be too weak," he said. The search for Evan was not just a local effort. The Air Force and the National Guard joined the search, turning every stone, looking behind every tree, but Evan remained elusive. Then, after 4 days of relentless searching, a glimmer of hope emerged. Evan was found alive, but the circumstances of his discovery were as mysterious as his disappearance. Evan was found in an area known as the Hole-in-the-Wall Gulch, almost 5 miles from where he had wandered away from. The area was remote and rugged, filled with pine and juniper trees, and crisscrossed by steep cliffs and narrow ravines. The search team that found Evan was astounded. He was in exceptionally good condition, considering he had been missing for 4 days in such a harsh environment. The area where Evan was found was so remote that it took rescuers nearly 1.5 hours to bring him out to a staging area. The searchers were baffled. How did Evan manage to reach this location? It was 5 miles away from his campsite, and given the terrain, he likely walked approximately double that distance. Evan was found inside a cave, and he couldn't remember much about his ordeal. One report also stated that he was missing a shoe, but couldn't remember losing it. The mystery of Evan's disappearance and subsequent discovery left many questions unanswered. How did an 8-year-old boy manage to survive for 4 days in such a harsh environment? How did he end up 5 miles away from his campsite? And most importantly, what happened during those 4 days that Evan couldn't remember? While there isn't much more in the way of reporting, at least Evan was found, and we can end on a good note. But the mystery of his disappearance and survival in the rugged Colorado terrain continues to baffle those who are familiar with his story. If you have enjoyed this content from Universe of Mystery, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. It really helps the channel, and it helps me to bring more mysterious content to you. Welcome back to A Universe of Mystery. On today's episode, we'll delve into the tragic story of Jody Zetchik and Gerald Duran, a couple who attempted to hike the Pacific Coast Trail, or PCT for short, in the winter of 1983. Their decision to take on the treacherous winter conditions led to a fateful event that ultimately cost them their lives. Jody Zatchik and Gerald Duran were a young, adventurous couple who shared a love for the outdoors. In 1983, they decided to take on the ambitious challenge of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, a 2,650-mile-long trail that stretches from the United States-Mexico border in California to the United States-Canadian border in Washington. The trail generally takes around 5 months to complete, and many hikers choose to hike it during the warmer months. However, Jody and Gerald made the fateful decision to attempt the trail during the winter. Jody and Gerald set off on their winter adventure. Beginning at the northern end of the trail in Washington, they planned to travel south towards Wrightwood, California, where they would stock up on supplies before continuing their journey. As they made their way down the trail, they encountered freezing temperatures, snowstorms, and treacherous terrain. Despite these challenges, the couple pressed on, determined to complete their quest. As Jody and Gerald neared Wrightwood, they made a critical error. They mistakenly descended into the wrong canyon, leading them into much steeper terrain than they anticipated or prepared for. As they continued downward, the already dangerous conditions grew worse, with icy slopes making the descent even more treacherous. As the couple tried to navigate the icy slopes, tragedy struck. They slipped on the ice, losing their footing and falling close to 100 feet down a steep incline. The fall proved to be fatal for both Jody and Gerald, and their dream of conquering the Pacific Crest Trail during the winter came to a tragic end. On December 3, 1983, search and rescue teams located the body of Jody and Gerald. The efforts to find them had been difficult, as the winter conditions made the search area even more dangerous for the rescuers. The terrain, combined with the weather, had created an environment where accidents were all too common. The tragic loss of Jody and Gerald serves as a somber reminder of the risks associated with taking on extreme outdoor adventures. Their story highlights the importance of proper planning, knowledge of the terrain, and respect for the environment, especially when faced with harsh winter conditions. In the wake of Jody and Gerald's tragic deaths, the hiking community has learned several lessons. One is the importance of knowing one's limits and being aware of the dangers associated with undertaking a challenging hike like the Pacific Crest Trail in the wintertime. Additionally, proper preparation and planning are crucial, as the couple's decision to descend into the wrong canyon ultimately led to their demise. Another lesson from Jody and Gerald's story is the importance of having the right safety gear and training for the conditions encountered on a hike. In this case, the couple would have benefited from equipment such as crampons, ice axes, and ropes, which could have helped them navigate the icy slopes more safely. Furthermore, training and mountaineering skills could have potentially saved their lives. Jody and Gerald's tragic end serves as a reminder of the immense power of nature and the need to respect it. While the allure of conquering a challenging hike like the Pacific Crest Trail in winter can be tempting, it is essential to remember that nature can be unforgiving, especially during harsh conditions. The story reinforces the importance of making well-informed decisions when embarking on any outdoor adventure, taking into account the potential risks and preparing accordingly. Although their story ended in tragedy, Jody and Gerald's ambitious attempt to hike the Pacific Crest Trail in winter has left a lasting impact on the hiking community. Their story has inspired others to push their limits, while also serving as a cautionary tale about the importance of proper preparation, respecting nature, and making informed decisions. Since Jody and Gerald's ill-fated journey, the Pacific Crest Trail has continued to grow in popularity, attracting hikers from all over the world. While most still choose to hike the trail during the warmer months, their story has not deterred a select few from attempting the trail during the winter. Those who do, however, are now more likely to be better prepared, thanks in part to the lessons learned from Jody and Gerald's tragic end. Now, we'll dive into the unsolved mystery of Chris Sherpa Fowler, an experienced hiker who vanished while attempting to complete the Pacific Crest Trail in 2016. Join us as we unravel the details of his disappearance, the ongoing search efforts, and the relentless determination of his stepmother to bring him home. Chris Fowler, a 34-year-old outdoorsman from Ohio, embarked on an adventure of a lifetime in 2016. He set out to hike the PCT, a 2,650-mile trail that stretches from Mexico to Canada, traversing diverse landscapes from desert to mountain ranges. Chris began his journey well prepared, training with a friend in Colorado and planning for packages to be sent to multiple checkpoints along the trail. He started the hike with his friend, but they agreed to separate if their pace changed. Along the way, Chris earned the trail name Sherpa and regularly checked in with his family and friends. On October 12, 2016, with less than 400 miles left to complete the PCT, Chris disappeared. He was last seen at a Cracker Barrel in White Press, Washington, where he stopped for coffee before heading back to the trail. His phone was shut off about an hour later, and he was never seen again. When Chris's parents realized they hadn't heard from him in 3 weeks, they contacted authorities, friends, and fellow hikers. The Yakima County Sheriff's Office began an extensive search, eventually concluding that Chris had likely been caught in a powerful storm unprepared and succumbed to the elements or hypothermia. Despite the official conclusion, many theories have circulated about Chris's fate. Some believe he intentionally disappeared, while others suggest he fell victim to an animal attack or foul play. However, no solid evidence has been found to support any of these theories. Sally Fowler, Chris's stepmother, had dedicated herself to finding her son. She had retraced his steps, organized search efforts, and used social media to share his story. Through her dedication, she became a vital member of the hiking community, advocating for safety measures and helping families of other missing hikers. In collaboration with the family of another missing PCT hiker, David O'Sullivan, Sally co-founded the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation. The foundation helps families of missing hikers navigate the search process, connects them to resources, and supports initiatives to prevent future missing hiker cases. Despite years of searching, Chris Fowler remains missing. His stepmother and the hiking community continue to hold on to the hope that he may still be found. If you have any information about Chris's case, please contact the Yakima County Sheriff's Office at 509-574-2535. Now we'll explore the mysterious disappearance of Christopher Sylvia, an experienced hiker who vanished while hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. We'll be taking a close look at the details surrounding his disappearance, discussing the search efforts that took place, and pondering the possibilities of what could have happened to him. Chris Sylvia was a 28-year-old hiker who was last seen on February 16, 2015, wearing brown hiking boots, a dark-colored jacket, and green pants. He had set out on the Pacific Crest Trail from Anza, California on February 12, 2015. On February 16th, he called his friend and roommate, Min Kim, to schedule a supply pickup near Warner Springs at the Buddhist Temple in northern San Diego County on Chickawa Valley Road. Chris never arrived at the agreed-upon location, and his friend did not report him missing until February 24th, when he was expected to reach his final destination. On February 24th, hikers found a sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and backpack that appeared to belong to Chris, as well as his ID, approximately 13 miles off Highway 79, north of Warner Springs. The San Diego Sheriff's Office called off the search for Chris on March 3, 2015, due to weather conditions. He had been missing for 2 weeks at that time. It's important to note that this is not the type of terrain that could easily hide a body. There are mountain lions in the area, but they are shy animals that generally avoid human contact. This case is quite puzzling. Chris wouldn't have gone far from his gear, and given the extensive search efforts, it's highly unlikely that he fell over or became incapacitated without being found. There's no evidence of crime against hikers being an issue in this part of the Pacific Crest Trail, and the distance from the border makes it improbable that he might have run across drug smugglers. One theory, as posted on an online forum, Find Chris Sylvia Missing Hiker Group, suggests that Chris might have gotten off the trail near Tool Springs and stayed at the Anza RV park for a couple of days. He could have met up with a camp host named Earl, who was known for being friendly towards hikers, and might have given Chris a ride to the Chickawa Valley Road to continue his hike. Unfortunately, Earl has since passed away, so this theory remains unconfirmed. Chris's mother, Nancy Sylvia, believes that foul play could be involved in her son's disappearance. All 5 of her children are experienced hikers, and she finds it highly unusual that Chris will go hiking alone and leave his gear behind. Min Kim, Chris's roommate, said all we can really do is hope he's okay and try to remember as many positive moments as he can with him. Despite the years that have passed, Chris's loved ones still search for answers and hope to someday learn the truth behind his disappearance. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Chris Stevens Sylvia, please contact the San Diego Sheriff's Department at 858-565-5200. Your help could provide much needed closure for Chris's family and friends, who continue to hold on to hope that they will find out what happened to him. As we reflect on the puzzling nature of Chris's case, it's crucial to remember the importance of staying safe and prepared while embarking on outdoor adventures. Even experienced hikers like Chris can encounter unexpected situations, and it's vital to have a plan in place for communication, supplies, and emergencies. The mysterious disappearance of Chris Sylvia remains an unsolved case, leaving many unanswered questions. Theories have been proposed, but no concrete evidence has emerged to explain what happened to Chris on that fateful hike. His loved ones are left with memories and an unwavering determination to uncover the truth. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps us continue to investigate and share the stories of missing persons. Until next time, stay safe on the trails and never stop searching for the truth. Nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is a treasure trove of natural beauty and mystery. It's the most visited national park in the United States, and within its vast expanse lies the Cades Cove. This picturesque destination, favored by those with a taste for the intriguing, is a popular hike for both locals and tourists who appreciate the allure of the unknown. The cove is a labyrinth of lush foliage with an 11-mile loop road that snakes through the landscape. It's a journey that offers more than just scenic beauty. It's a chance to glimpse the park's diverse wildlife, a thrilling prospect for those who relish the thrill of the unexpected. The area is also dotted with historic structures, each with its own tale to tell, and the seasonal scenery provides a stunning backdrop, particularly in the spring and in the fall. For those who wish to delve deeper into the mysteries of the park, the Cades Cove Campground offers the perfect base. With numerous hiking and biking trails, it's an opportunity to immerse yourself in the park's unparalleled beauty. Cades Cove is a magnet for those intrigued by wildlife. Whether you prefer to drive through or camp, the cove offers ample opportunities to observe a variety of creatures, from commonly sighted deer and black bears to the more elusive coyotes, groundhogs, turkeys, and raccoons. For many, including the Martin family from Knoxville, Tennessee, Cades Cove holds a special place in their hearts. For generations, they've made an annual trip to the Smokies on Father's Day weekend, specifically to camp and hike in the Cades Cove. Their love for this beautiful area and unique experience it offers continues to draw them back year after year, each visit uncovering new adventures. One such adventure began on June 13, 1969, when William Martin, his two sons, Douglas and Dennis, and his father, Clyde, embarked on a Father's Day weekend adventure. This was Dennis's first such adventure with his father, and the group planned to hike the 13-mile loop trail from Russell to Spence Field in the Cades Cove. Both William and Clyde were experienced hikers, familiar with the trail's terrain and its hidden surprises. Even Douglas, at just 9 years old, had hiked the trail before and was familiar with it. At the age of 6, Dennis was no stranger to family hikes. He was able to match the group's pace as they embarked on their journey from Cades Cove. Their path led them through the serene Abrams Creek and past the junction of the Crib Gap Trail. As they pressed on, they reached Russell Field, a place that could soak in the awe-inspiring scenery and relish in the wilderness. On the evening of June 13th, upon their arrival at Russell Field, the Martin family rendezvoused with Dr. Carter Martin, a family friend from Huntsville, Alabama, and his two sons. Despite the shared surname, there was no blood relation between the two Martin families. The following morning, June 14th, the group embarked on a 90-minute hike along the Appalachian Trail towards Spence Field, a location famed for its breathtaking view of the mountain laurel in full blossom during June. Upon reaching Spence Field, they were welcomed by other family members who had also made the trek. After a leisurely late lunch, the Martin children and Dr. Martin's children began to play. During this time, Dennis's father, William, overheard the boys conspiring. They were plotting a playful scheme to run on the edge of the field and sneak around, and then surprise the adults. To ensure the success of their plan, they instructed Dennis, who was wearing a bright red t-shirt, to walk alone so as to not give away their surprise. William watched the boys, amused by their laughter and camaraderie as they planned the surprise attack. Post-lunch, Douglas Martin teamed up with Dr. Martin's son and set off in one direction, while Dennis, still in his bright red t-shirt, ventured off alone in another direction. William, Dennis's father, watched his son walk away for a few minutes before turning his attention back to the rest of the group. When the children sprang their surprise on the adults a few minutes later, it took a moment for anyone to notice that Dennis was not among them. William had assumed that Dennis would eventually join the others and was not immediately concerned. However, it took less than 5 minutes for a sense of unease to creep in as William realized that Dennis was not with the group. Family dispersed, their voices echoing through the wilderness as they called out for Dennis, but their calls were met with silence. A sense of panic began to grip William as he and the others combed the area. Despite their frantic search, they found no trace of the young boy. William Martin was particularly distressed, as Dennis was a reserve child who always responded when his name was called. In a desperate bid to find his son, William decided to head in one direction while his father, Clyde, went in the opposite direction. William traced the nearby Appalachian Trail, heading west and calling out for Dennis as he went. He traversed a mile before turning back towards Russell Field, then retraced his steps all the way back to Spence Field, thinking that Dennis might have gotten disoriented and followed the path they had taken earlier in the day. Despite his exhaustive efforts, there was still no sign of Dennis. A defeated and exhausted William returned to Spence Field alone. This was 1969, a time before cell phones or quick means to call for help. Clyde, Dennis's grandfather, realized they needed assistance and decided to hike to the nearest ranger station at Cades Cove, a daunting 9 miles away. It took Clyde several hours to reach the ranger station, and by the time he arrived, it was already 8:30 p.m. He reported Dennis missing, and the rangers immediately initiated a search and rescue operation. As the search for Dennis commenced, a storm rolled in, adding another layer of complexity to the already challenging task of finding the young boy. The area where Dennis was last seen was known for its intricate terrain and potentially dangerous wildlife. The heavy rain further escalated the daunting situation. Despite the challenges, a few rangers immediately began searching the immense area around Spence Field, where Dennis had last been seen. They informed dispatch that they planned to search through the night in hopes of finding the missing boy. In 1969, there was no established large-scale search and rescue operation plans in place for the Smoky Mountain National Park. Chief Ranger Sneeden organized a search crew and set up a headquarters camp at Spence Field, where they strategized their efforts to locate Dennis. The search for Dennis Martin commenced on the morning of June 15th, with the crew hopeful of making headway in their mission of finding the missing boy. Initially, the search party was composed of 30 men, including 5 leaders and 10 additional crews of 2 to 4 men each. However, as the search progressed, more volunteers flocked to the site to lend their support. By 1 p.m. on June 15th, the search party had swelled to 240 people. But there was a glaring lack of leadership and coordination among them. As the days passed, the search for Dennis attracted an increasing number of participants, including Boy Scouts and rescue squads from North Carolina. They brought in jeeps, trucks, and helicopters to aid in the search effort. Eventually, the search party would comprise more than 1,400 people. The sheer number of search teams and volunteers may have inadvertently impeded the search. There was no established search and rescue operation plan for the park at this time, and the search lacked a clear chain of command. Consequently, searchers were more likely obliterating evidence or any clues that could lead them to Dennis Martin. Despite the number of people involved in the search, Dennis remained missing. As the search for Dennis Martin continued, a myriad of ideas and theories were proposed about his possible fate. Some of these came from psychics and fortune tellers who reached out to the authorities offering assistance. One psychic from Los Angeles claimed to have seen the boy 2.5 miles to the left of where he had last been seen by his father or brother. According to this psychic, Dennis had fallen off a steep area and was now ensnared in the bushes, but still alive. Another psychic from New Orleans suggested that the search should shift from the ground to the trees and the tree tops to find Dennis. These were just a couple examples of the dozens of calls that the search team received from psychics who claimed they had information that could lead to Dennis. Despite the search leaders following up on every call, they all turned out to be dead ends. After a week of unsuccessful searching, the FBI was called in to investigate whether there was any indication of foul play or a potential kidnapping. The FBI only gets involved in a missing person case if there is a suspicion of a crime. FBI agent Jim Wright was assigned to delve into the background of the Martin family to see if anyone could have had a motive to harm or abduct young Dennis. After an exhaustive investigation, the FBI found no evidence of any adversaries or suspicious individuals linked to the Martins. The absence of any concrete leads led the FBI and the Martins to redirect their search efforts back to the Smoky Mountains. The Martin family cooperated fully with the authorities, trying to recall every detail from their arrival at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park until the last moment when William saw Dennis walking away from the group. They recounted everything that had transpired during the initial search for Dennis in the hours before Clyde Martin reached the ranger station. Dennis went missing around 4 p.m., and it took Clyde until 8:30 p.m. to reach the station, leaving a 4.5-hour window. The family searched the immediate area and enlisted the help of anyone around Spence Field who offered to assist. The FBI interviewed friends, family, and acquaintances, but found no enemies or suspicious individuals connected to the family. Thus, they returned to the Smokies to continue the search for Dennis. The Martins raised some red flags and alerted authorities to investigate potential leads. One such lead was an unnamed man from Dandridge, Tennessee, who had been camping at Spence Field around the time of Dennis's disappearance. William Martin, Dennis's father, reported to park rangers that this man, referred to as Mr. Cooper, seemed to stay close to William during most of the search efforts. Adding to the mystery was an unknown woman claiming to have extrasensory perception. She contacted the police department and requested to speak with Dennis's mother. After speaking with the woman, Miss Martin was advised to be cautious of Mr. Cooper from Dandridge. Concerned that the woman and Mr. Cooper might be collaborating to abduct Dennis, Miss Martin shared this possibility with the police. Despite the potential lead, there is no public record indicating that the authorities found the situation suspicious enough to launch a further investigation. Nevertheless, the Martins noted these strange occurrences and felt they warranted attention. As the search for their missing son Dennis continued, the Martins grew increasingly desperate for any explanation that could help offer hope for his safe return. They considered every possible scenario that could have led to Dennis's disappearance, including the idea that someone may have confused their family with another. However, there is no publicly available evidence to suggest that this theory held any weight. Contained within the publicly available files related to the investigation into Dennis's disappearance are several intriguing leads and witness statements. Among these is the account of a man named Harold Key from Carthage, Tennessee. Harold and his family were in the park on the day Dennis went missing. They were in the Sea Branch area, located roughly 7 miles from Spence Field, near Rowan's Creek. According to Key, he heard a disturbing scream that afternoon, which prompted him and his wife to scan their surroundings, fearing that one of their children might be under attack by a bear. Shortly thereafter, Key spotted a suspicious-looking man moving swiftly through the nearby woods. He recalled that the man appeared to be intentionally avoiding them, and described the man as rough in appearance. Several days after Harold Key and his family were in the park, they returned home and learned of Dennis Martin's disappearance through news reports. He immediately reported his account of the sickening scream and rough-looking man to park officials. However, after investigating the matter, park officials determined that Rowan's Creek was too far from Spence Field for the incidents to be related. The search for Dennis persisted for 7 grueling days, and on June 20th, Dennis's 7th birthday, park ranger records show plans were being made for the grim possibility of not finding him alive. With over 1,400 volunteers participating in the search, concerns arose that uncoordinated efforts could be causing more harm than good. As a result, park officials requested volunteers cease joining the search, which had then covered over 56 square miles. As the search for Dennis Martin continued, the costs mounted. Despite the massive efforts from volunteers and law enforcement, the hope of finding Dennis alive began to wane. On Wednesday, June 25th, park officials announced that the search for Dennis Martin would soon be concluding. For the Martin family, the news was crushing. After nearly 2 weeks of camping out and searching tirelessly for their son, they had to pack up and return to Knoxville with heavy hearts. The uncertainty surrounding Dennis's disappearance and the lack of answers only compounded their anguish. As the search for Dennis Martin dragged on without any solid leads, the National Park Rangers made the difficult decision to suspend all major search operations on Sunday, June 29th. Despite their best efforts, they had come up empty-handed, and the FBI had found no evidence to support theories of Dennis being kidnapped. In the weeks that followed, the Martin family clung to hope for any information that could lead to their son's safe return. They offered a reward of $5,000, equivalent to about $40,000 today, for anyone who could provide credible information about Dennis's whereabouts. However, as time passed and the search efforts yielded nothing new, park officials had to make the tough call to officially close the search for Dennis Martin on September 11, 1969. The Martin family was left with no answers and the haunting memory of their son's disappearance in the Great Smoky Mountains. The disappearance of Dennis Martin has remained a mystery for over half a century, with no definitive answers as to what happened to the young boy. Various theories have been proposed, including the possibility that he became lost in the rugged terrain and perished due to the elements or an attack by wildlife. Over the years, several tips and leads have emerged. One notable tip came in 1985, when a group of illegal ginseng hunters stumbled upon what appeared to be the remains of a small boy in an area about 3 miles from Spence Field. The hunters found a skull and other remains, but fearing arrest, almost 2 decades passed before one of the men called in the tip. With a search team finally looking for the remains, they came up empty-handed, as too much time had passed. According to a report by park officials, the search for Dennis was a marked failure. Despite the presence of many people on the scene, any possible evidence that could have been preserved was likely trampled upon by the numerous individuals who came to offer their assistance. The failure to properly coordinate and organize the search for Dennis Martin prompted the National Park Service to completely overhaul their search and rescue operations across all national parks. As a result of these changes, agencies all over the United States and the world have also adopted these new protocols, which ultimately have resulted in saving lives. Despite the positive outcomes of these changes, it is heart-wrenching to know that they came too late to rescue Dennis Martin. His disappearance remains an unsolved mystery, and his tragic case has served as a catalyst for reforming search and rescue procedures across the country and across the world. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. In the quiet town of Tingley, England, an eerie and puzzling incident came to light that left investigators utterly perplexed. The story revolves around Zygmunt Adamski, who vanished under inexplicable circumstances, only to reappear lifeless atop a heap of coal a few days later. With perplexing marks and a complex web of mystery surrounding his fate, the enigmatic case of Zygmunt Adamski continues to confound investigators and spark theories of otherworldly involvement. Let's journey over to the charming village of Tingley, situated in the picturesque West Yorkshire countryside of England. Here lives Zygmunt Adamski, a coal miner. Originally hailing from Poland, Zygmunt spent much of his early life in his home country. However, in 1960, at the age of 37, he and his wife Lottie made a life-altering choice to move to the United Kingdom, seeking a fresh beginning together. Upon their arrival, Zygmunt and Lottie swiftly formed new connections and seamlessly embraced the tranquil pace of life in a rural English small town. They were known for their contentment as a couple, never seeking conflict and always radiating joy. Yet, no one could have foreseen the perplexing sequence of events that would unfold. Even today, the circumstances surrounding his case remain unresolved, leaving behind a multitude of unanswered queries and an enduring sense of fascination. On the bright afternoon of June 6, 1980, Zygmunt, then 56 years old, left his residence on foot with a simple task at hand: to purchase groceries from a nearby store. Before setting off on his approximately 1-mile journey to the town, he engaged in a friendly conversation with one of his neighbors. Taking in the pleasant ambience of that serene summer day, everything seemed entirely ordinary at the time. However, neither Zygmunt or his spouse, nor anyone familiar with him, could have anticipated that this would mark the final occasion they would ever see him alive. Zygmunt didn't come back after heading out to get groceries. He seemingly disappeared, except for a significant twist about a week later. Zygmunt reappeared, and things were far from normal. It was 5 days later, on June 11th, that a startling revelation took place. Zygmunt's lifeless body was discovered in a coal yard located in Todmorden, a considerable distance of more than 20 miles from his home. Trevor Parker, the son of the coal yard proprietor, inadvertently stumbled upon this tragic scene. It happened at around 3:45 p.m., while Trevor was opening the gates of the compound to prepare for his afternoon shift. His eyes fell upon a man's body resting atop a towering 12-foot heap of coal. Recognizing the gravity of the situation immediately, Trevor wasted no time and promptly notified the authorities. The police officer who received the call was Constable Alan Godfrey of the West Yorkshire Police. As he hurried to the scene, he must have been quite taken aback by the dispatcher's report of a body found on a pile of coal. Definitely an unusual call for this otherwise tranquil region of England. So around 4:10 p.m., Constable Godfrey arrived at the coal yard and met with Trevor Parker, who directed him to the massive coal heap. Once Godfrey observed the clearly deceased man on top, he requested additional support and backup from officers, crime scene technicians, and the Criminal Investigation Department. Like any police inquiry, initial statements were collected. In this case, the first statement was taken from Trevor Parker, considering he stumbled upon this unsettling scene. However, his responses were baffling, to say the least. Upon being questioned, Trevor shared that he had last been to the coal yard around 11 a.m. on that same morning. He emphasized that during his previous visit, there had been no sign of Zygmunt Adamski's lifeless body. His answers raised more questions than they answered. Parker firmly asserted that he had diligently closed and secured the gates when he left, with no awareness of anyone else entering the premises since then. This disclosure hinted at a disconcerting possibility that the body might have appeared within the span of those 5 hours in between. Constable Godfrey wasted no time and promptly summoned an ambulance upon his arrival at the scene. Paramedics swiftly concluded that Adamski had experienced a massive cardiac arrest. Yet, upon closer examination of the circumstances surrounding his passing, a series of suspicious elements began to come to light. These foreboding factors prompted the authorities to consider the potential involvement of foul play. The plot thickens as the investigation delves into even more unsettling details. Firstly, and perhaps most disturbing of all, were the findings of second-degree burn marks on the back of Zygmunt's neck and shoulders. These burns were curiously covered with a green-like gel substance, raising the unsettling possibility that someone had attempted to treat these wounds while Zygmunt was still alive. Secondly, the manner in which Zygmunt was discovered, along with his overall state of his lifeless body, cast significant doubt on the idea of a death caused by natural factors. The circumstances simply didn't align with a peaceful passing. Several pieces of the puzzle, along with Parker's statement, remained confounding. An eerie and puzzling detail emerged concerning the peculiar state of Adamski's attire. It seemed as though his clothing had been hastily rearranged by an unfamiliar hand, almost as if someone with little knowledge of dressing a human being had clumsily tried to redress him after his demise. For example, his coat was buttoned up incorrectly. His trousers and belt were fastened improperly and left loose, almost as if they had been pulled on without being properly secured. Even his shoes were left untied. To add to the puzzle, Adamski's wife later revealed that the shirt he had been wearing on that day of his disappearance was now missing, along with his wallet and watch. So they had dressed him anew, but decided not to include his shirt. Despite the disorder of his clothing, it was significant that the general condition of his attire remained relatively intact. This finding effectively dismissed the possibility that he had been living outdoors or exposed to the harsh conditions during the 5 days that he was missing. This perplexing blend of meticulously cared for clothes combined with incorrect reassembly only heightened the overall mystery. Continuing to pile on to the peculiarities, one of the most bewildering aspects was the impeccable cleanliness of Adamski's body. It was as though he had just emerged from a refreshing shower, despite having been absent for nearly a whole week. Remarkably, he exhibited only a day's worth of stubble growth. What added to the astonishment was the complete absence of coal dust on his skin or his attire. This effectively eliminated the possibility that he had climbed onto the coal heap on his own power before succumbing to his heart attack. Lastly, and perhaps the most perplexing of all, was the total lack of footprints or indications of disturbances on the coal pile itself. No trace existed of anyone scaling it, or any indication that it had been tampered with in any manner. Zygmunt's lifeless form lay on his back, his face oriented towards the sky. The scene left a chilling impression, as if he had been dropped from above, causing investigators to grapple with the puzzling circumstances surrounding where he was found. The puzzle grew even more intricate with each unanswered question, leaving those engaged in the investigation both baffled and concerned. Godfrey proceeded to share a chilling detail, the expression of terror etched onto Adamski's contorted face. This unsettling observation was subsequently supported by the coroner's findings, which indicated that Adamski must have undergone intense fear or agony in his final moments. Based on the post-mortem examination, it was established that Mr. Adamski met his unfortunate end between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. on that very Wednesday, when his lifeless body was discovered. Surprisingly, it was unveiled that Adamski had consumed food adequately during his period of absence, barring the day of his passing. This raised further intrigue, as it appears he had been taken care of during the time he was unaccounted for. Furthermore, forensic analysis unveiled that the burn marks on his neck and shoulders had been inflicted just 2 days prior to his death. The enigmatic gel-like substance applied to these burns underwent testing at a home office laboratory, yet its exact composition remains elusive. Interestingly, there was no record of Adamski seeking such treatment at any local hospital. As the investigation continued to unfold, no clear motive or discernible reason for Adamski's abrupt disappearance could be ascertained. The puzzle's complexity deepened with each revelation, leaving investigators and the community mystified, eager to unveil the truth behind this eerie and unresolved occurrence. Adamski was widely recognized for his benevolent nature, holding no known adversaries or grudges. His mental state was stable, and he had been eagerly anticipating attending a family wedding scheduled for the day following his enigmatic vanishing. As word of this case got out, it carried a series of peculiar elements that simply couldn't be disregarded. Speculation concerning the potential involvement of extraterrestrial abduction began to spread, gaining momentum with the tabloids in the ensuing weeks. While such ideas may seem far-fetched, it proves challenging to entirely dismiss them, given the uncanny circumstances surrounding Adamski's demise. Todmorden and its nearby regions have gained notoriety as a hotspot for UFO sightings and unexplained occurrences. The intricate nature of this hypothesis gains further traction due to the captivating involvement of Alan Godfrey, who later found himself at the heart of his own alleged alien abduction account. Telling the story of Zygmunt Adamski would be incomplete without delving into the parallel experience of Alan Godfrey, as these two narratives have become indelibly intertwined over time. The convergence of their story weaves a fabric of mystery and fascination that extends beyond conventional explanations. The eerie links between Adamski's disappearance and the realm of extraterrestrial encounters have captured the imagination of those drawn into the enigmatic. As we delve into their interconnected tales, we embark on a journey that challenges our perception and urges us to question the boundaries of our understanding. In November of 1980, approximately 6 months after the discovery of Adamski's lifeless body, another peculiar event unfolded. On duty in the early morning hours, Alan Godfrey responded to a peculiar report of a baffling phenomena. Eyewitnesses recounted observing a group of cows appearing and vanishing in various spots across the local council estate. Driving along Burnley Road towards the location of the latest sighting, Godfrey's attention was caught by what initially seemed to be an overturned double-decker bus roughly 200 meters ahead. It was beyond belief. Fearing a potential catastrophic incident involving a shift bus for local coal miners, anticipating the worst, he cautiously reduced his speed to assess the situation. However, as his police vehicle drew nearer to the scene, he quickly realized that it wasn't a bus at all, and whatever it was, it hovered above the ground. The object that confronted the police officer defied all logic and explanation. He could hardly come to terms with what he was witnessing. It was like something straight out of a science fiction movie, unfolding right before his eyes. He would later describe the object's shape as more akin to a diamond than a typical cigar or a disc form. The object emitted bright lights as it hovered, measuring about 20 feet in height and about 14 feet in width, spinning silently in the air. Confusion and fear gripped him. His immediate instinct was to call for backup for numerous reasons, primarily to have additional witnesses to this incredible sight. Godfrey attempted to request backup using both his personal radio and the police radio in his vehicle, only to find that they were inexplicably non-functional. With no immediate assistance available, he was left with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. Determined to gather evidence and document this otherworldly encounter, he quickly noted the time and hastily sketched the peculiar craft. He managed to sketch the object he was observing in roughly 30 seconds. However, as he completed his sketch and lifted his eyes, the strange craft had vanished into thin air. Searching the surroundings for any lingering traces of the craft, he made a chilling and concerning discovery. His patrol car had inexplicably advanced along the road, covering nearly a quarter mile from its initial position. Perplexed by this strange occurrence, he glanced at his watch, only to be confronted with another unsettling realization. Despite the sensation that only a minute had passed, almost 30 minutes of time had vanished, leaving an unaccounted for gap in his recollection. To intensify the disconcerting nature of this incident, Godfrey would later make yet another unsettling discovery. The soles of his standard-issue police boots displayed signs of splitting at the toe, as though he had been pulled along the ground by an unforeseen force. Shortly after this encounter, Alan Godfrey returned to the police station, driven to seek help from his colleagues in locating the missing cattle. Together, they embarked on a search that led them to a rain-soaked field accessible solely through a securely locked gate. Despite the soft ground resulting from recent heavy rainfall, no traces of hoof prints could be discerned. Much like Zygmunt Adamski, it appeared though as the cows had been inexplicably placed into the field. Following standard procedure, Godfrey reported his morning encounter with the strange object. Astoundingly, he uncovered that another driver, 3 miles further down the same road, had also witnessed the enigmatic white light and reported it to the Todmorden police. Weeks transpired without further incidents until an unfortunate turn of events unfolded. News of Godfrey's encounter with the strange craft somehow leaked to the press, thrusting him and his department into a whirlwind of embarrassment and scrutiny. Despite his status as an exemplary officer, having received 2 commendations for his past police work, Godfrey found himself marginalized by his peers and gradually losing favor with his superiors. His once promising career was shattered, and he eventually made the tough choice to depart from the police force. Years later, Godfrey engaged in multiple sessions of hypnotic regression, a method that allowed him to recall his otherworldly encounter in more vivid detail. Under hypnosis, Godfrey recollected being blinded by the light and subsequently losing consciousness. He told the hypnotist that upon awakening, he found himself in a strange room, being examined by several small creatures and a tall humanoid figure with a beard. Once more, his assertions were met with skepticism and ridicule. As I previously mentioned, due to his treatment by fellow officers and superiors, he decided to quit the police force. Would this be enough for you to leave your career? Several weeks after Godfrey's account had leaked to the newspapers and gained international attention, he was summoned to his inspector's office. There sat an individual in a dark suit and tie who introduced himself as the man from the ministry. Holding a file, he displayed Godfrey's sketch of the peculiar craft. While Godfrey was not allowed to see the remaining contents, he summarized that it likely contained his comprehensive report of the strange events from that day, along with the details of Zygmunt Adamski's death. The individual instructed Godfrey to take an oath under the Official Secrets Act, binding him to silence regarding what he had witnessed. Reluctantly, Godfrey consented. Over the ensuing days, the young policeman encountered this individual on multiple occasions, becoming aware of him being shadowed. Ultimately, Godfrey confronted the man at his local pub, firmly expressing his desire for him to depart. Shortly after that confrontation, the mysterious man disappeared, never to be seen again. The identity of this enigmatic figure remains a mystery to this day. Godfrey believes he might have been an agent of MI5, dispatched to dissuade him from pursuing this matter. Another theory proposes that the stranger could have been a representative of the West Yorkshire Police, sent to warn off Godfrey against speaking to the media in order to prevent further attention being drawn to the force, already grappling with significant negative publicity due to the Yorkshire Ripper case, or perhaps he was one of the infamous Men in Black. When later recounting the enigmatic case of Zygmunt Adamski, Godfrey openly acknowledged that it was one of the most perplexing assignments he had ever encountered. Reflecting on his own experiences, he remained uncertain about the roles of UFOs in Adamski's fate, although he refrained from entirely dismissing the possibility. Fast forward 25 years, and researchers from the British UFO Research Association and other organizations conducted interviews with Adamski's family members, uncovering intriguing revelations. Contrary to prior reports, it was revealed that Adamski hadn't been eagerly anticipating his goddaughter's wedding. In reality, a profound family rift had occurred during that time. A female relative had temporarily taken refuge with the Adamski family after obtaining a restraining order against her own husband. This led to considerable animosity between the two sides of the family, a common outcome during tumultuous separations. Given these newfound details, two main theories arose again regarding Mr. Adamski's whereabouts during those 5 days. On one hand, some speculate that he was forcibly abducted by the estranged husband of the female relative, held captive in an isolated shed, and subjected to torment, including the application of battery acid. This prolonged ordeal eventually led to his fatal heart attack. In a state of panic, the estranged husband may have quickly disposed of Adamski's lifeless body at the coal yard, attempting to conceal his hedonist crime. However, this theory seems inadequate due to the myriad of elements in this case that don't align with it. It's puzzling why Adamski, seemingly neutral in the family dispute, would have been singled out for abduction. What purpose would his kidnapping have served? Moreover, the state of undress in which he was found adds another layer of intrigue. Why was he undressed, and what was the mysterious substance discovered on his skin? If his captor had intended to harm him, as suggested by the burn marks, why apply the substance? These perplexing details only deepen the mystery. Furthermore, the decision to place Adamski's body on top of a coal pile in broad daylight raises questions. Remember, his body wasn't at the location at 11 a.m., but was discovered there 5 hours later, in the middle of the afternoon. Why not hide it in a less conspicuous spot, at a less noticeable time of day? How did the person responsible for disposing of the body gain access to the coal yard without leaving any traces? These inquiries underscore the intricacies of the case and the necessity for a more thorough examination of the circumstances surrounding Adamski's disappearance and subsequent discovery. As we delve into the layers of this narrative, the uncertainties and unexplained elements remain captivating. A meticulous analysis of the facts, careful exploration of the alternative theories, and a steadfast pursuit of the truth are the avenues through which we may inch closer to unveiling the hidden mysteries within the Zygmunt Adamski case. The lack of arrest or charges connected to the abduction introduces another layer of intrigue. It's evident that this theory falls significantly short of providing definitive answers. Consequently, many individuals turn their attention to the potential involvement of extraterrestrial forces. Is it conceivable that Adamski was somehow taken by beings beyond our world? According to this line of thought, Adamski could have been abducted by extraterrestrials on June 6th as he headed to the local grocery store. It's theorized that he might have been held in a state of suspended animation, which would account for the lack of facial hair growth and his healthy appearance upon his return. Perhaps he was intermittently brought in and out of a suspended state for examination or other purposes. Overwhelmed by the shock of his encounters with the otherworldly phenomena, it's assumed that Adamski suffered a severe cardiac arrest, ultimately leading to his premature passing. Contemplating the potential involvement of UFOs gives rise to a multitude of inquiries. Were these extraterrestrial entities conducting experiments or observing Adamski for an enigmatic purpose? What could have motivated his abduction? And if these beings from beyond were indeed responsible, how can one reconcile the particular circumstances surrounding the discovery of his body and the ensuing investigation? From within the enveloping Zygmunt Adamski vanishing, a chilling detail surfaces. It came to light Adamski's cherished possessions, symbols of his identity, had vanished alongside with him. For what intent might extraterrestrial beings have sought his coveted wallet and watch? Strikingly, most accounts of alien abduction scenarios hinted at an alternate narrative, although the experiences were undoubtedly terrifying and sometimes accompanied by an unsettling physical sensation. The abductors themselves were often depicted as somewhat benign, lacking harsh intentions toward their subjects. This leaves us to ponder, why did Adamski bear the marks of burns that appear to be intentionally inflicted? Could these have been unintentional actions on the part of his captors? And if so, what peculiar substance did they employ, as its chemical composition defied identification by contemporary science? Perhaps the most perplexing facet of this mystifying ordeal was how Adamski was unceremoniously abandoned atop a heap of coal, illuminated by the glaring daylight. Why would his captors opt for such a brazen act, forsaking the shadows where the secrets of their potentially malicious deeds could have remained concealed? Was there perhaps a hint of remorse at their conscience, compelling them to return him to his home and his loved ones? Regardless of our perspective, the Zygmunt Adamski destiny remains unresolved. While the plausible narrative of a family feud might provide a partial explanation, it falls short of being totally conclusive. Indeed, we should not dismiss the prospect of an alternative hypothesis, no matter how fantastic or out of this world they may appear. The truth, it seems, evades us, a phantom relegated to the pages of history, yet another unsolved case that time has forgotten. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new and upcoming videos.
Amanda Eller, a physical therapist who was lost on a hike in Maui, telling her story tonight for the first time since she was found after going missing for 17 days.
Breaking news, a woman missing in Maui has been found alive. The news just coming in, Amanda Eller was last seen more than 2 weeks ago, and at this hour she's being taken by helicopter to the hospital.
A woman in Hawaii who was missing for 17 days after going for what was supposed to be a short hike.
It did come down to life and death, and I had to choose. And I chose life.
In the heart of the Pacific Ocean, on the island of Maui, a tale of survival unfolded that captured the world's attention. A tale that speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of hope, and the strength of community. This is the story of Amanda Eller. Eller's passion for holistic health and wellness led her to become a yoga instructor and then a doctor of physical therapy. She moved to Maui, Hawaii, where she worked as a physical therapist and yoga teacher. She was known for her love of nature and often spent her free time exploring the beautiful landscapes of the islands. Before her disappearance, Eller was described as a vibrant and healthy woman who loved the outdoors. She lived a lifestyle that was in tune with nature. She was also known for her spiritual beliefs, often seeking solace and peace in the natural world around her. On her website, she describes her life philosophy as follows. The body and its interconnected systems want to work in harmony. In its natural state, that's exactly what it does. It's a self-regulating, autonomous system that we can impact through injury, trauma, or negative emotional experience. When we get injured or have a pain that is unaddressed within the body, the system will compensate. Uncorrected, this can lead to a cascade of compensations that work to keep the body in movement, even though it becomes less functional over time. Long-term effects of a compensated body system include symptoms of chronic pain, inflammation, malalignment, lipping, and weakness, just to name a few. In order to heal the body, we must be willing to take a look at the bigger picture of what's happening within the system. This includes compensatory mechanisms, original injury, and other facets of healing that may be unaddressed. If these details are unaddressed, it can lead to a feeling of being stuck and in pain. The Makawa Forest Reserve, a vast expanse of lush greenery, home to a myriad of wildlife and a network of trails that weave through the dense undergrowth. It was here that Amanda set out for what was supposed to be a short hike. The Makawa Forest Reserve is a beautiful expanse of preserved woodlands located on the eastern side of Maui. It covers over 2,000 acres and offers a rich and diverse landscape for exploration. The reserve is home to a variety of indigenous flora, including cook pines, ferns, and rainbow eucalyptus trees, whose sweet, minty scent fills the air. The Makawa Forest Reserve is not just a place for exploration, but also a place for conservation. Visitors are encouraged to stay on the marked trails and avoid stepping on the plants along the edges. Amanda decided to try a new path, as many avid hikers do, and stopped to meditate and take a nap. When she woke up, she was disoriented. She had strayed from the familiar path and was now lost in the dense forest. But as the hours passed, Amanda didn't return. Her car was found in the parking lot, and her wallet and phone was still inside.
Amanda Eller, 10:11 a.m. last Wednesday. She goes to a store wearing flip-flops, buys items for a Mother's Day gift. 10:21, she mails the gift at the post office. That is the last image we have of her. Now, at some point, she drove to the Makawa Forest Reserve. Her locked car was found the next day when she was reported missing. Inside, the same flip-flops, her purse and phone, the keys hidden under the front tire.
A massive search operation was launched. Hundreds of volunteers, helicopters, drones, all scouring the jungle and streams for any sign of Amanda. The search gained national attention, but days turned into weeks with no sign of her. Amanda was not prepared for a long stay in the wilderness. She was wearing only a tank top and capri-style yoga pants. She had no food, no water, no shelter. She was truly alone. Her family and friends held on to hope, refusing to give up.
I think they've done everything that they know they can do, and I'm satisfied with that.
But hundreds of volunteers continue to look for her.
We don't know if it's just a hiking injury or if there's foul play.
That's Amanda's boyfriend, Benjamin Kunkel, the last person to see her Wednesday morning. He volunteered for and passed a lie detector test. Police say he is not a suspect, and they have no evidence of foul play.
I hope she's in the forest, but if someone has taken her, and we're not interested in you, we just want our daughter back.
They knew Amanda as a fighter, a survivor, and they were right. Amanda had to rely on her instincts and knowledge of the wilderness to survive. She ate guavas, random plants, and even moths. She drank water from streams, careful to choose clear water to avoid bacteria. She faced physical challenges as well. She fractured her leg and tore the meniscus in her knee after falling off a 20-foot cliff. She was swept away in a flash flood while trying to clean her shoes. Some nights, she slept in the mud, and eventually even slept in a wild boar's den for the shelter and warmth. After 17 grueling days, Amanda was found.
17 days missing in a Maui jungle. No phone, no GPS, no supplies.
You have a choice to make. You could sit on that rock and you can die, or you can start walking down that waterfall and choose life.
She was injured, sunburned, and had lost 15 pounds, but she was alive. Amanda's story is one of determination and survival. She chose life, even when faced with the harshest of conditions. She pushed through fear and despair, driven by the will just to survive.
Troy Helmer and Chris Berquist discovered Amanda Eller clinging to life on a waterfall in the Hawaiian rainforest.
As soon as we saw her, it was like, oh my God, we got her, we got her!
The cavalry arrived. What were her first words?
To be entirely honest with you, I don't remember because it was so incredibly overwhelming. We were all crying and screaming and laughing.
Then, for the first time in more than 2 weeks, she called her dad.
It was just nothing but pure emotion.
I have the most gratitude and respect and appreciation. I can't even put it into words for the people that have helped me, for the people that have prayed for me.
Most of those volunteers, like Chris and Troy, had never met Amanda before, but now they say they feel bonded for life.
After listening to Amanda's story, we are left with a profound sense of awe and respect. Awe for the indomitable spirit of a woman who refused to surrender to the harsh elements, and respect for the sheer resilience of the human spirit when faced with the most daunting of challenges. Amanda's story is a stark reminder of the power of survival, hope, and resilience. It's a testament to the strength that lies within each of us, often untapped until we are pushed to our limits. In our day-to-day lives, we often let small problems and inconveniences bother us. We fret over traffic jams, worry about deadlines, and stress over minor disagreements. But when we are forced to stare death right in the face, as Amanda was, we realize how trivial these problems truly are. When faced with the prospect of death, Amanda chose life. She battled the elements, fought off despair, and clung on to hope, which is nothing short of inspiring. Her story reminds us of what is truly important in life. It's not the daily aggravations that define us, but our relationships, our community, and our willingness to help others. It's about the love of family, the support of friends, and the kindness of strangers. It's about the strength of a community that comes together in times of crisis, and about the power of hope that can light the way even in the darkest of times. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the day-to-day problems that define us, but how we respond to the challenges that life throws our way. And as Amanda Eller has shown us, with hope, resilience, and the support of a community, we can overcome even the most daunting of challenges. If you've enjoyed this content and this inspirational story, please consider sharing, subscribing, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Thank you for watching this video from a universe of mystery. Stay prepared, stay safe, and stay curious. Gary Ridgway pleaded guilty to the murders of 48 women on November 5th, 2003. He acknowledged being the notorious Green River Killer, a serial murderer who terrorized the Pacific Northwest with a prolonged killing spree lasting nearly 20 years.
And Mr. Ridgway, is it your desire to plead guilty to the 48 charges of aggravated murder in the first degree because you believe that you are guilty of each of those offenses?
Yes.
In court, as the dates, locations, and names of his victims were recited, Gary Ridgway remained emotionless, but acknowledged each and every murder, one by one.
For the death of Wendy Lee Caulfield.
Guilty.
For the death of Colleen R. Brockman.
Guilty.
For the death of Yvonne S. Antosh.
Guilty.
For the death of Patricia M. Barzak.
Guilty.
During his confession, Ridgway admitted to the police that he had killed a minimum of 90 women. The number was so high that he had difficulty remembering their faces, names, and even the specific locations where he disposed of the bodies. The victims were predominantly prostitutes and runaways, residing in and around Seattle, Washington, with some being as young as 16 years old.
Like many other serial killers, Ridgway targeted vulnerable people. And prostitutes are the most vulnerable of all.
The Green River is where his first victims were discovered, solidifying his position as America's most prolific serial killer.
Everybody was terrified. You know, I mean, these were places where we picnicked, where we swam, where children ran free up until this time when, you know, bodies started showing up.
The incidents commenced on July 15, 1982, when two children noticed the lifeless body of Wendy Lee Caulfield, a 16-year-old runaway, floating naked beneath the Pett Bridge. She had been strangled. 4 weeks later, the lifeless body of Deborah Bonner, also strangled, was discovered floating face down in the river.
Once the killing started, everyone was rather mystified. I mean, they thought, is this the work of more than one person? And where does it begin and where does it end? And how could this be? I mean, they were all in the Green River.
And the killings continued. 3 days later, on August 15th.
We were told by a rafter that he'd been floating down the river. He saw two, what he thought were mannequins alongside the riverbank, and as he got closer, realized that they weren't mannequins, but indeed they were human bodies.
Cynthia Hines and Marcia Chapman were their names. They were found submerged in water up to their chests, restrained by boulders, and both had been strangled.
The thing that really stuck out in my mind was Marcia Chapman's hand. One of her arms were free and waving in the water, kind of saying to me, help, you know, here I am. It's an image in my mind that will never go away.
While descending the hill towards the bodies, lead detective Dave Reichart unexpectedly encountered another victim sprawled in the tall grass. Her name was Opal Mills. Unaware at the time, Reichart couldn't anticipate that evidence collected from these crime scenes would play a crucial role in capturing the Green River Killer nearly 2 decades later. Meanwhile, Ridgway himself, just minutes away, was occupied with his job at the Kenworth Truck Company in Seattle. By 1982, he had already spent 11 years working there.
Gary was a painter and he was a taper. They taped the designs onto the trucks.
This occupation demanded meticulousness and accuracy, making it the perfect job for Gary Ridgway.
Meticulous. He wanted to make sure everything was just perfect to him.
While Gary Leon Ridgway exhibited precision, many of his co-workers sensed that something was amiss with him.
When a woman walked by, most guys will look and they'll go kind of, hey, you know, but he kind of like got lost in his thoughts.
However, the true extent of how distinct Gary Leon Ridgway was remained unsuspected. As the season transitioned from fall to winter in 1982, the people of Seattle remained oblivious to the fact that the Green River Killer's identity eluded them, despite him being concealed among them in plain view.
You know, he was really unremarkable until it was discovered that he had killed dozens of women. And that's part of the secret of his success. He looks and acts like everybody else, and he acts and looks like nobody in particular. So he gets away with it.
Even after 2 decades, numerous friends and neighbors continue to struggle with accepting the reality.
He's a wonderful person. He's the type of person you can walk up to and hug and say, "Hey, Gary, how are you doing?"
Had the police possessed greater knowledge about Gary Ridgway's upbringing, particularly his childhood, they might not have been taken aback by the revelation that this diligent family man was in fact the concealed Green River Killer. In August of 1982, the bodies of the initial victims of the Green River Killer were discovered, swiftly instilling fear throughout the serene suburbs that border the river.
My biggest fear, quite honestly, was being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somebody's getting ready to dump a body, and here I am there to witness it. And that whole summer, anytime you were in a car by yourself, there was police around asking you what you were doing.
Following the discovery of the murders, an extensive investigation was initiated by the King County Police in Washington, along with other local law enforcement agencies. They quickly discerned the presence of a serial killer who seemed to be specifically targeting the streetwalkers operating along the infamous Pacific Highway South Strip, a notorious stretch extending from SeaTac to Seattle.
They make the perfect victim. They're getting into a car and they're trying to do it secretly because they don't want to get caught by the undercover police officer that might be watching. They don't want to get caught by the patrol officer driving by. So as far as victims go, he picked easy targets.
By the conclusion of 1983, a total of 13 bodies had been discovered, while approximately 24 additional women had been reported missing. Some of these women were last seen entering a pickup truck. The police diligently pursued every lead, including one that ultimately pointed them towards Gary Ridgway. It happened when a young woman named Marie Navarre vanished after being witnessed getting into a pickup truck. The same truck was later observed parked at Ridgway's residence. The police interviewed Ridgway, who managed to persuade them that he was not the individual that they were seeking.
He has this unassuming, unintimidating demeanor. You could stand next to him in a grocery line. You would never, ever expect that this is the Green River Killer.
Gary Ridgway's life commenced in rather ordinary circumstances. He was born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah, and became the second of Mary and Thomas Ridgway's 3 children. In 1960, the family relocated to Washington State, where they established themselves in a modest 3-bedroom house situated in McMinnon Heights, which presently forms part of the city of SeaTac.
Our neighborhood was like a working class neighborhood. A lot of kids in the neighborhood, and we all kind of played together and walked to school together.
Ridgway's father worked as a Metro bus driver, operating a route that traversed the Pacific Highway South and passed through the notorious strip where Gary would eventually encounter numerous victims. At home, the Ridgway family embodied the archetype of a suburban household. Gary's father took pleasure in organizing garage sales, while his mother had a strong passion for gardening.
Loved to work on the garden. Always was saying hello, always pleasant. Always wore that straw hat of hers, always out in the cutting the trees down or pruning or whatever. Always did that.
However, Ridgway would later recount additional recollections involving his mother. As a bedwetter until his early teenage years, he remembers her washing his genitals, which triggered intense feelings of lust toward his mother, with mixed humiliation.
He talked about gazing on her as she sunbathed, and he had sexual fantasies about her. Almost in the same breath, Mr. Ridgway would say that he felt rage toward his mother, that he wanted to kill her.
Most serial killers have a rich fantasy life that involves sexuality and violence fused together so that they come to believe that they can't have one without the other. And the first time that they kill, it may even be on a lark.
This pattern appeared to manifest when Ridgway succumbed to a homicidal impulse at the age of 16. Encountering a 6-year-old boy playing cowboy, Ridgway lured the child towards a wooded area. It was there that he brandished a pocket knife and stabbed the young boy, leaving him in a state of shock.
The boy was stunned, and Mr. Ridgway, according to the boy, and Mr. Ridgway admits this, said, "I just wanted to see what it felt like to kill someone." And Mr. Ridgway laughed and walked away.
Fortunately, the boy managed to survive this ordeal, and Ridgway was never identified as the assailant. However, he confessed to engaging in other various forms of deviant behavior.
He dabbled in arson, he said. He suffocated a cat.
Despite his dark tendencies, Ridgway presented himself as anything but a menacing figure during his time at Tyee High School. In fact, he left a lasting impression on one of his classmates.
I thought he was pretty cute. I could even say I had a little crush on him back then. His eyes and his smile are the things that I remember the most about Gary. When he would smile, his dimples would show, and his eyes would kind of sparkle.
Ridgway performed poorly academically, consistently earning mostly D grades in his coursework. With an IQ in the low 80s, he faced the need to repeat a year twice. Ridgway engaged in social activities with other teenagers at the nearby community club, which hosted dances every Saturday. However, there was an incident where he had a confrontation with a boy from his school.
He actually peed on my brother's leg in the restroom. Gary made a rude comment, and my brother told him to take it back, and Gary turned around and peed on his leg, and then my brother hit him, so we all got kicked out of the dance and had to go home early that night.
In June of 1969, at the age of 20, Ridgway successfully completed his high school education at Tyee High School. In August of that year, he enlisted in the Navy. The subsequent summer, he married Claudia Craig, a woman who he had been dating for a few years. Shortly after their marriage, Ridgway embarked on a 6-month deployment to the Western Pacific.
They spent time visiting various ports, including the Philippines, where apparently he visited prostitutes.
Ridgway faced significant consequences for his sexual encounters as he contracted a sexually transmitted disease. His naval medical records confirmed that he had been diagnosed with gonorrhea, leading Ridgway to blame the prostitutes for infecting him. Upon his return to the United States, he discovered that his wife had been unfaithful, compounding his feelings of betrayal.
He discovered that Claudia had an affair with somebody else, and he was very upset. He said, "My first wife turned into a whore."
Ridgway's marriage eventually dissolved, but his deep-seated animosity towards prostitutes, which he would later act upon, was just commencing. By 1972, he returned to SeaTac as a single man after being honorably discharged from the Navy, securing a full-time position at a local Kenworth plant where he painted designs on trucks. Ridgway appeared to others as any ordinary individual, giving no indication that he was gradually transforming into a violent force in disguise. In 1972, Ridgway was still on the path towards becoming a killer. Although he had deviated as a young man, investigators have no knowledge of him having committed murder at that point. The precise catalyst that would ignite his life as a serial killer had yet to fully align, but over the subsequent years, they would eventually converge.
We look so carefully in our quest to understand serial murder at what happened to the killer when he was a child. But there's something that we ignore, and that is making the transition into adulthood and middle age.
At the young age of 22, Gary Ridgway found himself in a profound emotional abyss. He endured a painful divorce from a woman whom he had developed a disdainful perception of, viewing her as a promiscuous individual. Although filled with anger, Ridgway's response to the circumstances did not involve embracing loneliness. Being alone at home, without a female companion, did not align with Gary's preferred lifestyle.
When people think of a serial killer, they tend to think of a loner who is unable to have a relationship, who can't hold a full-time job. But the truth is just the opposite, and Ridgway is a perfect example.
Within a few months of his divorce from Claudia, Ridgway quickly entered into a new romantic relationship. He encountered Marshall Winslow at a well-known singles gathering spot, and within a year, Gary and Marshall became husband and wife.
She met his needs. She was initially very subservient. She cooked for him. She provided sexual activity whenever he wanted it.
They enjoyed sex anywhere and everywhere.
Gary particularly enjoyed having sex outdoors, especially near the stunning landscapes of western Washington state.
Gary liked to have sex outdoors in a variety of places along the Green River, in the tall grass there, in various locations along highways. He would just pull off the road and have sex.
Subsequently, those very locations would become the final resting places for the women that he murdered. However, during that period, life appeared to be improving for Gary Ridgway. That is, until 1975, when Marcia gave birth to their son, whom they named Matthew.
Mr. Ridgway was not particularly fond of having a child. It changed his relationship with his wife. She wasn't as available to him. She had a period of time when she was unable to have sexual intercourse.
As time passed, a shift occurred in Gary's demeanor during their intimate encounters. What was once playful and carefree by the river took a disturbing undertone, altering the way he approached her.
He was in the habit of sneaking up behind her and frightening her. And apparently, his idea of foreplay on some occasions was to choke her, as he called it, grabbing her around the neck, compressing her neck, interfering with her breathing.
Marcia decided to leave and initiate a divorce, leaving Gary Ridgway to face the consequences. If he believed life had reached its lowest point during the end of his first marriage, the subsequent departure of Marcia made him feel even more despondent. In later years, Ridgway would express to the police that losing Marcia was a turning point from which he could never recover.
He felt he had been done wrong. He said that he should have killed her, and it seemed that after that, that's when the rampage began. He regarded women who were prostitutes as totally expendable and less than human. In fact, he told police that he regarded them as garbage.
Ridgway would bring his victims either to his residence or a secluded area close to the river, reminiscent of the places where he had been intimate with Marcia in the past. Once there, he would ensure that they were fully undressed to avoid leaving any evidence on their clothing. Often, without any prior warning, he would swiftly wrap his forearm around their necks from behind.
It was up close and personal, lots of physical contact. He would literally squeeze the last gasp of breath from his dying victim's body. And the more that she pled and begged and screamed, the better he felt about himself.
He created a system of burying them near where he could get at them and use them and reuse them until there were maggots or flies there. That's having sex until they almost deteriorate.
Frankly, I don't know the psychological reasons behind what he did, but according to Mr. Ridgway at least, his reasoning was that it was simply free. It was a date, a sexual act that he did not have to pay for.
Once Gary Ridgway experienced the exhilaration of taking a life, he discovered an irresistible compulsion within himself. Simultaneously, Ridgway assumed the role of a father figure to his young son, who was only 7 years old. Although he wasn't initially enthusiastic about Matthew's birth, their time together gradually increased as the years passed. Following the divorce, Ridgway had custody of Matthew every other weekend, shamelessly exploiting this circumstance as a means to lure his victims.
In the house where he did many of his killings, you could put someone at ease by saying, "Oh, here's my son's room, and there's toys. And why would a guy with a son, he's not going to hurt me."
It shows you just how crafty he was. He was able to use his son as a ploy to assure his victim that he was innocuous, that he was harmless.
Matthew even had an encounter with at least one of Ridgway's victims. The boy happened to be present in the truck when Ridgway transported her to a secluded area in the woods.
He drove her to a remote location, told the boy to stay in the truck, and then he disappeared into the woods with the woman and then came back without her. And his little boy asked, "Well, Dad, where's the girl?" And he said, "Oh, she walked home. She lives near here."
Ridgway didn't care at all about his son. Use people, use them as instruments to meet his needs. He did that with his son, he did that with his wives, and he certainly did that with his victims.
By January 1984, the number of bodies discovered along the Green River had reached 13. The police force, driven by desperation, endeavored to connect the fragments of evidence and apprehend the killer. However, for Gary Ridgway, this marked only the initial phase of his evasive game. Seattle had little cause for celebration as the new year commenced. Over the course of nearly 2 years, the Green River Killer systematically took the lives of numerous young women. Frustration grew among the detectives of the King County Sheriff's Department.
It is challenging There is a perpetrator out there, there's a killer on the loose who has evaded our efforts to apprehend him.
Within the span of a month, these efforts were intensified through the establishment of the Green River Task Force. This unit, comprising of 50 individuals, diligently compiled an extensive roster of suspects. The list was derived from the influx of tips received via a hotline, information regarding known sex offenders, and every other conceivable source. However, despite their exhaustive endeavors, the breakthrough remained elusive.
Just the sheer volume of what we had, 12 to 15,000 suspects.
You had priests in women's underwear out there. You had child counselors out there with kiddie porn. There are a lot of men who at the end of the day take off their tie, go out to the strip, and they're looking for something kinky.
Ridgway's plan was pure and simple. Make a deal with a young lady on the street, whisk them away in his truck, and they are never to be seen again.
Well, Mr. Ridgway thought about killing all of the time. It was basically every waking moment.
When he ate, when he slept, when he even probably made love to his wife, he was thinking of killing and abusing a woman in the woods. That's his day.
He was a perfect killing machine, in my opinion. He didn't have a conscience. He enjoyed what he was doing.
It was a game, and he was winning.
In an attempt to confound the police and maintain an element of uncertainty, Ridgway employed a cunning tactic. He would frequently repaint the different pickup trucks he utilized to navigate the strip, hoping to disrupt the pattern that might expose his activities. As the members of the task force sought to delve into the psyche of the serial killer, they even sought the insight from another infamous serial killer, Ted Bundy, who had previously haunted the Pacific Northwest.
He had written us a letter and said, "Why don't you come down and talk to me? I think I can help you understand the mind of the Riverman," as he called Ridgway. He said he's probably attracted to pornography. He likes the hunt, likes the power and authority over his victims. He will go back and he'll have sex with the dead bodies. And certainly that gave us an insight that we didn't have before.
Every time a new victim was found, investigators meticulously combed over the crime scene, gathering evidence and diligently searching for even the slightest trace or clue that could lead them to the killer.
What were we looking for? Anything. Potential hair transfers, paint chips, glass, clothing damage, anything.
The process of evidence collection persisted as the bodies were transported for autopsy, enabling the medical examiner to recover semen from some of them. Methodically and cautiously, the accumulating evidence was preserved, holding the potential to eventually unmask the elusive Green River killer, who continually appeared to outwit those in his pursuit.
Everything we did as a task force was, of course, reported. So it was reported on the news. We were going to have surveillance. So he would visit one site and place a victim, and then go to a different site and place a victim. He learned a lot from all of us, unfortunately.
However, Ridgway's ability to deceive did not render him completely invisible to law enforcement. The police were aware of his regular patronage of the women working on the strip.
He was called in by the task force on several different occasions to be interviewed, and even though he had killed a woman 3 weeks before one of the major interviews by the task force, he displayed no signs of nervousness.
Ridgway was so composed he even passed a polygraph test.
The polygraph test is based upon one's guilty emotions. And if you don't ever feel guilty about what you've done, you're going to be able to pull the wool over somebody's eyes.
Despite his efforts, Ridgway couldn't entirely deceive the vigilant detectives on the task force. In 1987, he faced even closer scrutiny, primarily due to the pickup trucks he utilized while searching for victims, which caught the attention of the investigators.
The deeper we looked at Ridgway, the more it became obvious that he was available for every single one of those disappearance dates. We're working on credit card records, every single place where he bought gas, and we checked out how many miles it would take to drive to and from work every day and how much that would normally burn up. Well, he was burning up many, many gallons of gas, way beyond, and that's just what he was charged. We had a couple of witnesses when they were shown the photo montage containing Ridgway's photo. They would say, "Well, it looks a lot like this one," and point to his picture. but we didn't have anywhere near enough to make a conviction because it was all circumstantial.
Investigators obtained a search warrant for Ridgway's residence, hopeful to discover tangible evidence that would establish him as the killer. However, the search yielded no incriminating findings.
Mr. Ridgway was simply very good at what he did. According to Mr. Ridgway, he killed all of the women in his bedroom. His practice was as soon as he finished killing them, he would often take the sheets off his bed, throw them in the washer even before he left with the woman's body and dumped it out at a scene. So he left behind nothing, essentially.
Once again, Gary Ridgway had outmaneuvered the investigators.
And I think he starts playing more of a game of moving pieces around. He's moving skeletons around, he's moving bodies around.
He did change his MO. He was taking bodies further out into the woods or the mountains because he didn't want their bodies found.
Unimpeded in his ability to explore the expanding regions where he disposed of his victims, Gary Ridgway persistently pursued and killed, firmly believing that nothing could hinder his actions. By 1988, over 40 women had disappeared. The notorious Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, remained at large. At this stage, Ridgway not only evaded law enforcement, but also concealed his murderous activities so skillfully that another woman agreed to become his wife. In 1988, Ridgway entered his third marriage with Judith Lynch.
When they first moved here, they were newlyweds. Their eyes sparkled, they were always smiling, and they were always happy, and you just never seen them apart, ever.
However, love and marriage did not quell Ridgway's insatiable urge to kill. He persisted in his murderous acts, all the while ensuring that his new wife remained blissfully unaware.
He could be Gary Ridgway, the husband, and drive off in the truck and become Gary Ridgway, the killer, and come back home and be the husband again, and never give her any reason to think he was anything but that.
He had his killing career that he did out of sight from any other people, and he had the rest of his life where he was a father and he was a husband and he was an employee.
There was a sense among Ridgway's colleagues at the Kenworth truck plant, where he had been employed for years, that he was concealing something. After all, his co-workers were aware that he had been questioned by the police in the mid-1980s.
We had the unique experience of having to work next to him, always thinking, could he be or couldn't he be? And everybody had their own opinions. Some people thought he was, some people thought he wasn't.
You wouldn't want to have a beer with him, you wouldn't want him to come over to your house. He just was a different type of a person.
Some employees at Kenworth gave Ridgway a nickname, Green River Gary. Little did they realize the true nature of his actions. Ridgway later confessed to investigators that he occasionally played pranks on his co-workers using jewelry he had stolen from his victims.
He put the jewelry in places where people could find them, where he worked. When one of the employees picked it up, put it on, and had a real good find. In Gary's mind, I think he walked very quietly and had a little smirk on his face, and there was a big smile inside of him, reminding him of the young ladies he killed.
And that isn't all he did with his victims' possessions.
He had huge garage sales, and he'd have just gobs of stuff.
I guess the kind of funny thing I always saw was a lot of jewelry, a lot of young girls' jewelry.
Gary Ridgway was convinced that he had successfully deceived his neighbors, co-workers, the police, and everyone else around him.
But I think after a while, he was winning the game. And he says, hey, I'm doing pretty good.
The police investigation encountered significant challenges, leading to a slowdown. Although Ridgway continued his killing spree, the number of discovered bodies decreased as the case progressed without resolution, causing the investigation task force to gradually diminish in size.
By 1990, there were 5 of us left. I left in April of 90. There's 4 left. By 1992, Tom Jensen's the only guy left.
I tried to keep it alive as best I could in the mind of the public.
The situation appeared bleak until investigators received a much-needed boost from modern technology. In the 1980s, detectives diligently collected samples from the crime scenes without fully comprehending their potential value. Nonetheless, they meticulously cataloged and stored the samples, hoping for future breakthroughs.
They refrigerated and preserved it because, sometimes as people can say, well, this is not doing anything good. It's just taking up room in our evidence room. Let's get rid of it. That didn't happen.
Reports of their forward-thinking approach only started to materialize in the summer of 2001, when advancements in DNA technology allowed for the analysis of evidence collected back in the 1980s. After a span of 19 years since the tragic murder of Marcia Chapman, who was strangled and left to decay on the banks of the Green River, the samples obtained at the time of her body's discovery were finally sent to the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab for examination.
There was spermatozoa there, and we were able to generate a male DNA typing profile that matched Gary Ridgway. It's really amazing, the profiles we got.
Upon retesting samples from the victim, Carol Christensen, it was confirmed that they matched with Ridgway. For all those years, Gary Ridgway had managed to evade justice for the heinous crimes. However, at last, the police possessed the irrefutable evidence required to apprehend him and convict him.
We had tears in our eyes. It was a great moment. One I won't forget.
Furthermore, there was additional news on the way. Advancements in forensic techniques now made it possible to identify minuscule paint particles that had been collected from the crime scenes years ago. Scientists successfully established a direct connection between these particles and Ridgway, further strengthening their case against him.
We find out their spray paint, which was chemically identical at least, to the material that Gary Ridgway was working with at the plant where he worked. He was bringing paint particles, unbeknownst to him, into his vehicle, into his home, and if victims were in his vehicle in his home, those would be transferred as well.
And this is where Ridgway wasn't thinking very clearly. Those paint samples matched exactly.
Armed with compelling evidence, the task force was on the brink of terminating Gary Ridgway's reign of terror. For almost 2 decades, Ridgway derived twisted pleasure from brutally ending the lives of numerous women. While eluding capture, he had become America's most prolific serial killer. Despite his humble beginnings as an unremarkable boy who struggled academically, Ridgway found a perverse sense of satisfaction in outwitting an army of investigators.
We didn't hold him when we had him in '87. We didn't hold him when he was contacted in '84 and '83. So he had to have felt that he was winning.
However, on November 30th, 2001, the game came to an abrupt halt for Gary Ridgway. DNA evidence conclusively linked him to 4 victims from the Green River murders, leading to his arrest at his residence.
One of my neighbors came rapping on the door and he said, "Hey, Clem, did you see who they arrested?" And they had a picture of Gary back on the TV. And I said, "You gotta be kidding. Ridgway, the Green River killer."
When I heard and saw the picture of Gary on the news, my heart stopped and my stomach went into the biggest knot. I was so shocked.
Despite the undeniable physical evidence that connected him to these crimes, Ridgway protested his innocence. His family remained loyal, refusing to accept the gravest accusations against him.
They stuck with him, they visited him weekly, his brothers, their wives, his son, and they were quite concerned and quite convinced that this was all wrong, that Gary couldn't have done this.
Ridgway's wife, Judith, also remained loyal as long as she could.
She was standing by him and was in total disbelief, assuming that they had the wrong person, it couldn't be. And then as evidence began to come out, eventually they separated, and she now has nothing else to do with him.
On November 5th, 2003, any lingering doubts about Ridgway's guilt were completely dispelled. He pleaded guilty to the heinous murders of 48 women, in exchange for cooperation with the prosecution, offering valuable information about his victims and the location of their remains. Ridgway managed to evade a trial and the potential death penalty.
Mr. Ridgway, how do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree, as charged in count 1 for the death of Wendy Lee Caulfield?
Guilty.
How do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree, as charged in count 2?
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
It's like he didn't have any remorse at all for what he had done. You know, he killed so many people, he didn't remember who they were, what they looked like. I just couldn't believe that somebody could kill all those people and not remember them.
The enraged relatives of Ridgway's victims, given the opportunity to address the court, shared the same sentiment. They witnessed Ridgway being sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on December 18th, 2003.
You had said your memory, when it comes to all of the women you took, was gone. Our memory is not. In your words, you said that they didn't mean anything to you, but she meant everything to us.
She was a mother, she was a wife, she was a sister, and we miss her.
In an emotionless demeanor, Gary Ridgway remained seated as the relatives of his victims condemned him and scorned him.
He's an animal. I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death.
He's gonna go to hell, and that's where he belongs.
However, the seemingly impervious facade of emotional detachment finally shattered when the father of one of Ridgway's victims unexpectedly delivered a heartfelt act of compassion, catching him off guard.
Mr. Ridgway, there are people here that hate you. I'm not one of them. You've made it difficult to live up to what I believe, and that is what God says to do, and that's to forgive. You are forgiven, sir.
The tears shed by Ridgway, accompanied by a statement he made to the court later that day, marked the closest he had ever come to displaying genuine remorse.
I'm sorry for killing these ladies. They had their whole lives ahead of them. I'm sorry for causing so much pain to so many families.
To me, this was all about the victims and the devastation he did, not about him. He should definitely die for what he did, but that would do nothing for all those victims, and there's many, many victims. There's no sense of victory in this. I'm just glad that he stopped.
The enigma of what compelled Gary Ridgway to become the Green River serial killer may forever remain locked within his own mind, with only he holding the key to unraveling the secret.
In a way, it's sort of like trying to speculate about the mental life of a snake. Mr. Ridgway is a predator, first and foremost. And ultimately, at least from my perspective, you can't come up with a more coherent explanation of why he killed than to answer simply because he could.
If you've enjoyed this content from Universe of Mystery, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps the channel, and it helps me share my content with fellow mystery and true crime enthusiasts.